Tick tock, time to rock. Tick tock, time to rock. Sit tick tock, time to rock. Whoa. Hey, guys, I always blame myself if I cause us to be late. This wasn't one of them times. This was all AP. my camera's not working. Oh, why is it a blank screen? Let me shut everything down and restart everything.
That's weird. Everything is kind of slow on my part.
Once again, it would take you or your wife or even your 3-year-old kid. What is he? 3, 4? What's the young one?
4. He just turned 4.
Your 4-year-old son. It would take him 5 minutes to say, here's a computer that would actually work for the one thing I still do in life, live streams. Everyone chip in $5 and we all got it covered. But no, stubborn Turk. Whoa, I'm superior to everyone. I will not humiliate myself asking other people who are not as important as I am. Turks, man. Wow, Turk's got a problem. Hey, so you heard of this?
Oh, say, can you see my camera now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Okay, good.
You heard of this cosmic skeptic guy?
Oh yeah. Cosmic skeptic, cosmological skeptic. I did indeed.
Seems like a pretty decent fellow.
Yes, that is true. He's on the more based end of things, more on the based end of the spectrum of atheists and all that.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? Like, yeah, he's popular, but some of the atheists of the past 20 years.
Exactly.
You look at them, you look at what they're saying, and you're like, okay, I see why someone who's stupid would fall for this stuff. But they're saying lots of really dumb stuff, using dumb arguments. But, they're talking to a population that was pretty ignorant, and they seem very hostile and so on. Whereas Alex seems to actually try and listen, even though I think if years ago, he was in the more firmly in the he was more aggressively atheist than he is now. Now he gives the impression of he's trying to understand what everyone is saying and so on, and trying to do good interviews, bringing out their best points. But he'll interview people like Jordan Peterson and Richard Dawkins and Ayaan Hirsi Ali and so on. Always seems really, really balanced compared to a lot of what we saw in the past 20 years. Anyway, so that's Alex. Who's ever said a bad word about Alex?
Mohammed Hijab. That's the funny thing. That's all I think about. Whoever he has interacted with has a good impression of him and thinks, what a decent person. What a nice guy. What an upstanding. What a wonderful person. Yes, what a nice person to talk to. Except Mohammed Hijab. Only Mohammed Hijab fought with him and even started threatening him.
Oh, yeah, we know where you live. And then Alex is like, hey, this guy's talking about knowing where I live, and it'd be a shame if we ran into some of his guys. And he was like, no, we just mean because of what? He made some excuse for it, like, oh, we're just talking about how awkward it would be or something like that. Yeah. But that's a job. Oh, yeah, Alex posted that video years ago after he debated Mohammed Hijab because they, edited things afterwards, and they, put Mohammed Hijab in the same suit and recorded him, spliced it in there into their video version of things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I guess everyone gets the same impression of Alex O'Connor, aka Cosmic Skeptic, except Mohammed Hijab. But everyone gets the exact same impression of Mohammed Hijab, except his fans. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian, an atheist, whatever you are. If you have any sort of discussion or debate with Mohammed Hijab, you're like, this guy is a lying scumbag, man. He always does it. He always finds a way. Good
What's
times.
funny is
These are good
interacting
times.
with Mohammed Hijab and being and getting into a fight with Mohammed Hijab is what led Alex to get in touch with me, to contact me, and to be like, "What is wrong with this guy? Can you explain to me what is happening? And are they all like this?" And I'm like, "Pretty much, yeah."
No, it's just him. It's just him. That's why it's just him and all these guys who cheer for him and Ali Doe and all these. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's life.
Unfortunately, Alex also is. So he has a lot of. He's a very, very good person, very nice person, and you know, always very nice to people. Never out there to fight and all that. But after interacting with Mohammed Hijab, he started getting threats and death threats and things like, "We know where you live. How about why are you making video about Muslims, about Islam? We know where you live. Be careful." And apparently, they at some point got in touch with somebody that is very close to him and started threatening them.
Hmm.
So he decided to just delete a video that he uploaded about Islam, and
Did he?
also, yeah, he told me personally. He said, "You know what? I
Hey.
can't deal with it right now because of people close to me."
Hey, you should message him. Say, hey, send us that video. We'll re-record it with one of us talking, and then we'll post it.
Inshallah.
And so you won't be in it, but the content will be out there. The content will be out there. Boy, these guys make a bang-up impression on everybody. Do what we say, or we will threaten you. So you got the same old approach. If you do what we say, we shower you with praise and say what a good person you are. And if you don't do what we want, then we shower you with abuse. And anyway, if you do that for 14 centuries, you can actually get lots of people to submit to Islam who don't actually want to submit to Islam, but they do so because you've conditioned them to. Interesting stuff.
Well, a small correction there. Most Muslims will, the Islamists will shower people with abuse. However, Muhammad Hijab could also shower somebody with urine. Call it golden shower.
Yeah, so, guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, Hijab has sent us a lot of messages talking about golden showers. And he says all this stuff that people don't know what he's talking about, so they have to look it up, and they're like, don't look it up. Do not Google that. Do not Google what he just said. Wild stuff.
How about you get on your knees?
You've been intellectually molested. These are awesome times. I've told people like 5,000 times this year that they have no clue how good they have it compared to 15 years ago. If you look at the Muslim apologists from 15 years ago, I'm mean compared to them, and that makes it difficult because if they come across as like really nice, and you have a bunch of Westerners going, "We judge everything based on who's the nicest." Oh, but that Muslim guy's really nice, and David's really mean because he's criticizing their religion. Then you get a completely new generation of Dawah guys. We'll humiliate you. We'll crush you all. We're gonna kill all the apostates and take the little girls, and we're gonna marry the little girls, and it doesn't matter if they're 4. We don't care. We will molest them. And people are going, "Whoa! Someone please destroy this sickness for us." It's like, thank you, Dawah. Thank you, Dawah guys. You're doing a bang up job.
Alhamdulillah.
So we've got Alex O'Connor interviewing Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and this was by popular. I got multiple requests over the past few days because they just posted this, and so Alex interviews Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was raised as a Muslim, eventually apostatized, became an atheist, rolled with the new atheist crowd. So Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and so on for a number of years. And then I think it was last year. Was it last year? Was it still earlier this year? I think it was last year where she said that she was now a Christian. But when you were listening to her, and Alex asks her about this, I watched like the first half. Alex asks her about this, but I think it was last year, whenever it was starting. In her explanations, it sounded like it was just like pragmatic. It was like, hey, this helps me, and I think it will help the world. It's better for the world. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like it was political and just, I need something to help me. Whereas in later discussions, sounded like she actually believed in the core claims of Christianity, and this was really upsetting to people like Dawkins. They're like, what? How can you serious? You believe what? Resurrection, virgin birth, you believe these kinds of things? And so Alex is going to ask her to clarify some of that sort of stuff.
You believe in that, really?
Yes, that doesn't make sense. What you should believe is that a universe popped into existence. The universe was born from a virgin, since no one was there to bang nothing. Nothing is the virgin.
Yeah, it was both political, where she thought that there is nothing that can actually stand against the decline and infiltration by Islam and so on. But it was also on a personal level. She expressed how she got really depressed and hopeless, and Christianity came in as something that gave her a sense of belonging and standing up and continuing going on. So it was both political but also personal, and as you just said, the conviction that the truth claims of Christianity are true seem to have come later on.
We have this question here. When did Ayaan convert to Christianity? I thought she eventually became one after escaping her original country. No, she became an atheist and remained an atheist for a long time. And I think it was last couple of years are foggy as far as timelines. I know we've been covered. I think it was last year when she announced that she'd become a Christian, and then did follow-ups and is still doing follow-ups. So yeah, this was sort of recent. This is pretty recent, her conversion to Christianity. I'll take these first couple super chats since one of them is about you and your stupid computer. Let's see. TikTok, you got a broken clock? No, my clock is functioning perfectly as I stare at it minute after minute, waiting for AP to show up.
That's interesting.
AP, here's interesting. AP, please make a GoFundMe for a computer, if for nothing else, to keep D. Wood focused on destroying Islam and atheism. See, that's the point. If if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for other people who have to be annoyed.
Do it for the children.
Do it for the children who are watching the show, so that they don't have interruption and that they can get the good informations.
I will consider it. Yeah.
That's good. And it's very simple. And see, I could do it. I would rather you do it specifically because you know exactly what kind of computer, and it actually helps if you say, guys, here's the computer I want with the storage and with this processor, and here's exactly what it costs. Oh, and here's this this camera that would work well with it and would be an upgrade on my old crap camera that keeps malfunctioning because I don't even know what the problem is, or if it's a combination of the two. And you say, here's the total cost, and then everyone kicks in $5, $10, $100, and it's covered. But it actually helps to say, here's what we're trying to get. So do everyone a favor. If you're not going to do it for yourself, AP, do it for me, so that we don't have to have 10 minutes of interruptions and disruptions and you starting your computer every freaking episode.
The thing
do it
is,
for me and for the children. Me and the children. Don't think about yourself. Just me and the children. What?
There's something stupid that I do sometimes, which is that I think it might just be something that that I could fix by just resetting my computer and removing things and reinstalling things. So therefore, I should try that. So I just leave it at that until I get around to doing that. But I never get around to doing that. So
yeah, but there is this small fact that equipment just wears out over time, and sometimes you just need a new computer. So
inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
So just do that. Here's the thing. Supposing it is some of those weird little things that you never ever get to, you could still solve all that problem. And if you get a new, really good computer, then it's going to be better regardless. Like, even if your current system, you could actually get it to work and stuff by installing and reinstalling and deleting and this and that and whatever process and troubleshooting. A new computer will still be better because they have significantly better computers than whenever you bought that stuff back in 1972.
I shall do that.
All right.
I shall do that.
Just set it up. Matter of fact, it's Christmas. It's Christmas coming up, man. If you hurry up and convert, it'll be your first Christmas as a Christian, and then everyone will want to get you an awesome Christmas present.
Hey, maybe I should convert to Christianity just so people donate to my GoFundMe.
Yeah. And say, no, you should say, hey, and if I reach 100 super chats right now, I will convert to Christianity.
Messed up.
You guys everyone see how these agnostics think? They're like, well, I don't care either way, and I don't know, so I might as well do whatever gets me paid.
I bet if at some point I convert, there will be Muslims who will clip this what I just said and will show
it was just for the super chats. Let's see. Woohoo! What do you want for Christmas, AP? I assume socks.
Woohoo!
Yeah. If by socks you mean a new computer.
Yes.
Caleb says. Yeah. Caleb says, I heard Hijab's channel purposely censors comments. Oh, no question. I mean, it's not, it's basically you can go on him posting something and there will be like 72 comments on a debate versus thousands on another channel. So it's clear that they vet every comment.
Yeah, what he does is he has this setting on YouTube, which is that every single comment posted must be approved before it is posted. So he turns that on, and he only allows a limited number of comments early on that are positive. He doesn't allow comments that are critical of him. So he only allows comments that agree with him, and then once he has allowed like 100 comments or so, he just stops there. That's it.
Smart. Hey, Issa, what's up? We're going to get Issa here on a show pretty soon.
Again?
Yeah. He says, hey, would you want to do a movie night? I have one. What do you mean? Is it public domain? Because if we just all sat around and watched a movie, then we'd get a copyright problem. AP, change that legacy agnostic processor in your brain for a more based Model A Jesus processor. I think they're talking about more than just computers here.
Interesting.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali said that she forces herself to believe in Christ and it helps her to remain sane as Jesus Christ is the only one who answers everything for her. Interesting. We're about to see some of that. All right, are we ready to jump into this?
Yes.
Here we have it. Cosmic Skeptic, whom everyone likes except Muhammad Hijab, and Ayaan Hirsi Ali, whom everyone likes except Muslims and a few of the new atheists who are crying right now.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali, welcome to the show.
Alex, thank you very much for having me.
It's been an incredible year for you, coming out as a Christian, dealing with the reactions and criticisms as a result of that. My first question is, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I hope so. How is your life different?
I hope it's disastrous because you've left atheism.
How dare you convert to Christianity? You're sick.
Never mind. I'm sure it'll come up. I wanted to talk about like when she's talking to Richard Dawkins, and she's like, I was depressed and I just didn't even have the courage to end my life, and I was just miserable, and I became a Christian. It restored my zest for life. And Richard Dawkins spends like the entire time attacking Christianity. She's like, this is the only thing that's keeping me alive right now. And he's like, let me attack it. Let me attack it and attack and attack. It's kind of funny. It's kind of endearingly amusing.
Different from a year ago when you'd become a Christian, but you were getting ready to talk about it. It wasn't part of your public persona yet. How has life changed for you?
Well, I think I was troubled in my heart, in my head, and I'm in a place of peace. I'm at peace with what I do, with where I am, with my work, with my family, and it's something new for me. So sometimes there's this sense that it will just disappear and I'll go back to that time of confusion and trouble. But it's permanent. It feels permanent. It feels more permanent. And in fact, every day I feel more and more attached. I'll say attached and connected to God. And that connection then gives me a much stronger connection with everything else, with my family and friends and relations and my work.
That was interesting and insightful. So she was, guys. If you didn't see, we've went through it before. Some of her previous discussions where she talks about being just horribly depressed and so on. It was her therapist who said, "Have you tried like going to church or something? Like you may need something that's beyond medications or something like that. There are other things that may help you more than medications and so on." And keep in mind, that doesn't even mean like the therapist was a Christian or something like that. You have, I had an atheist professor of psychology, and he was explaining how he was calling it like disturbingly high success rates for exorcisms. This guy's an atheist, and he would explain it in terms of the placebo effect, like, hey, if you think a demon has been cast out of you, well, you'll probably be doing better in life. If you think you're demon possessed and then you believe the demons have been cast out of you or something like this. So he doesn't believe in any of it. He just believes, okay, that's actually something that can help people. And so this could have, I don't know, it could have been a Christian therapist. It could have been a non-Christian therapist. But it was interesting what she just said there, that because the way she described it to when she was having a dialogue with Richard Dawkins was her zest for life was restored after she became a Christian. It was all more and more miserable and depressed over time, and then became a Christian, and then her zest for life returned, she said. But then right here, what she just said was she has this worry that it's going to go away. Like, wow, I feel much better right now. Things are so much better. She has this concern, like, what if it just goes away and I go back to the way it was a couple of years ago? She's saying, but as she continues, it's not going away. It seems permanent, and things get better. Imagine that. By the way, interesting. I wonder if she went through like an agnostic phase.
Probably.
Yeah. So AP says she probably went through an agnostic phase. So guys, isn't that a cool progression? That's like worthy of modeling. She was a Muslim, then she became an atheist, then some agnostic phase that lasted for a while, and then became a Christian. Isn't that a good little process? That sounds smart.
The thing is, with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, I've followed her journey loosely over the years, but I always thought that whenever I heard her speak, when I read a few things that she wrote, but especially whenever I heard her speak, I thought. Now you would not, honestly, you would not know this because you're a psychopath, but I always thought that there is a profoundly huge sense of suffering that can be heard in her, in whenever she speaks, that is probably very much related to what she has gone through from a very, very early age, where she grew up. But then also later on, when she thought she found peace and she found refuge, her colleague that she made a movie together with was brutally murdered in the middle of the street in broad daylight in the Netherlands. And the same guy, he shouted and also attached a threat to her, and he was out to get both him and her. So she got away from that, and I cannot even imagine how difficult it must be for her, all of it. And if she found some relief, some solace, in this, in embracing the faith, it's great,
Yeah, it is. And again, I watched, I think, the first half of this. So at some point, she explains that she was diagnosed with like PTSD over the stuff that had happened to her. So she had all the trauma when she was growing up, and then left Islam, and then she's under a death sentence and becomes a vocal critic of Islam. So is then even more of a target. And then she's the one who wrote the movie. We've actually covered it here in the past, but what was it called? The Teo Van Gogh movie? Submission. Brilliant stuff. She put the content. She wrote the script. Teo Van Gogh, who was just masterful. You couldn't have done it. You couldn't. Martin Scorsese, none of these guys could have crushed it the way Teo Van Gogh did. And Teo Van Gogh, her friend, got killed over it. And then I remember in her book Infidel, when she's talking about then there are the threats against her, and the government actually stepped in to try and protect her. And they were like taking out her windows and replacing them with bulletproof glass and stuff like that. But it's just interesting that all the way back then, these Northern European countries, they all understood, hey, these guys will kill you. It's like, and they keep bringing more of them in, but they understand these guys will actually murder you over this stuff. The governments understood that. Why? Because when they say, hey, we're going to get this girl, they don't say, oh, that's just made up nonsense. No one's actually going to do anything. It's no, we know these guys will do it. And so it's interesting that you can know these guys are somehow different and they'll kill you over this stuff. And they're like, hey, let's just bring in as many of these guys as possible. So back to Ayaan here. And next question.
Has the way you feel about Christianity changed since publicizing the Christianity that you have? Has that changed the way that you approach it? I imagine that there are a lot of people trying to help you determine which denomination you might be, or iron out some of the intricacies of your theology. How has it been since actually coming out, as it were?
Well, I have to always bear in mind, and I think maybe there's an advantage to coming to Christianity as an older person, is that you keep telling yourself there is Christ and his teachings and the gospel and the Bible, and then there are the followers of Christ who are humans. And they see things differently and they experience things differently. And so, yes, I do get all these invitations of people saying, join my denomination. It's better than the other one. And here's why it's better than the other one. I also really get a lot of people who say, I prayed for you for so many years and my prayers have been answered. Mm-hmm. And of course, my answer is always, Amen. But aside from that, I also get a large number of people who are delighted that people like me, who are former atheists and vocal former atheists, are coming back and saying there's something of value to religion in general and Christianity in particular. So I get that reaction as well.
And how do you feel about the fact that a lot of people are using your conversion to put a flag in a cultural moment? I mean, such a personal story as yours, which perhaps we can relay to those who don't know.
He's talking about you.
Becoming a political tool for so many to say, look at what's happening in the world. Look at this former atheist. Look at how she's become a Christian, and putting you up on something of a pedestal. How has that been for you?
So I don't like pedestal.
It is.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it was kind of an important moment for me because I saw it coming. You can I'd have to go back and find the video, but it was a couple years ago, and I made some video about atheism, and then I posted as the pinned comment, guys, there's a new argument that's out to be coming, and it's going to be really, really powerful. And I said that because I could tell the new atheism wasn't going the way they had expected. The predictions they made about, science flourishing and so on, if you just get rid of a bunch of Christianity, you just get a bunch of new atheists and so on, that it was all coming to an end. It wasn't working. In other words, your theory had been tested and it had failed miserably. And I could see that was coming. And I didn't know if I had no clue it was going to be Ayaan Hirsi Ali, but I was like, you're going to start seeing some of these people change their minds and you're gonna get some sort of big name who says, you know what, this atheism stuff didn't work, and I'm gone. So I knew that was coming. You could sense it. It was in the air, and then. So when it happens, it's aha, it's starting, ladies and gentlemen, it's starting.
And so it begins.
Imagine all the peoples who were ex-Muslims, who were atheists for a while, then agnostics, then what? Interesting.
But
cool times.
Look at this. We're discussing a serious topic here, and Black Angel says he looks like an 80s P star. Like always with the mind in the gutter.
Gutter mind.
The thing is, we don't even know if Black Angel is actually a woman. You know, has a woman as a profile picture, but probably some guy.
Yeah, it could be some creepy dude.
Adolf or Herbert from Germany.
Yeah, if I say this as myself, people will think I'm creepy. But if I'm a woman, then they will say it's okay. Yeah, ha ha. Yeah, we've never seen that one before.
Right.
A couple comments here. You heard it here. AP will convert for a computer. Yes, that's why all the Muslims have that one clipped. Apostate of Allah says, Apostate of Allah is an ex-Muslim. She said, heard of Ayaan when I was Muslim, and I called her a liar, wondering who was paying her to smear Islam.
Israel was paying her.
Then I left Islam, and I respected her, even though she was an atheist. Now she's a Christian. Look at God, he is good. Indeed. Indeed. AP, descendant of Otterman, needs flippers, not socks. From the previous comments saying that you probably want socks for Christmas. Atheists in the video's comments are saying that the discussion made them sick and they couldn't stand to hear the full video. Yes. Cope. Is that how you use cope now? Is that where you use it?
Yes. Where? Yes, cope.
Okay, cope, yes. Cope harder. Can we consider Ayaan a Kantian, since Kant believed that God's existence was morally necessary because we need divine help to achieve
incredibly disrespectful
moral perfection? No, she's in a different category. I see where you're going, and there could be some overlap with that, but yeah, I haven't seen any indication that.
Why are you insulting her?
Who? Peace be upon me?
Yeah.
Yeah, stop that, peace be upon me. No, Kant did have some interesting views. Very different from there's the pre-critical Kant, and he actually argued that there's a proof for the existence of God that he was working on. It's been later philosophers called it the possibility proof, but he actually starts off with the premise: if anything is possible, then God exists, and then he actually goes through the argument, and it's you'd wonder, what are you talking about? If anything is possible, then God exists. His reasoning was, if anything is possible, then there must be a ground of possibility. In other words, there's something that makes other things possible. Otherwise, there would just be impossible. There would be nothing, and so on. But then he starts arguing about what the features of a ground for any sort of possibility would be like. And he starts going through, and he says, he ends up with a list of attributes of God that he said would have to be the ground of possibility. So interesting stuff. And then later, after what's called his critical turn, he became like the most extreme dualist of all time. No one is more of a dualist than Kant, although he's a dualist in a different sense from other people. But yeah, he had a moral argument where you should believe in God because God would be necessary for a certain trajectory of morality. You have to believe that these things are all going to align in the end, and you need God for that, and so you have to believe in God. Let's see, what should I do if propaganda got me and I can't stop thinking about the pattern among Jews? e.g., porn. Hungary has a complex history with them. What? What is this? What is this, AP?
Probably somebody who is pretending to be surprised by a non-argument, a typical libel that people make against
So wait,
Jews.
so are you saying like a groiper who I'm going to pretend to be I'm going to pretend to be bothered about this, and I'm going to act like I'm kind of seeking and I want a response, but it's mainly just to get these guys talking about this and derail the subject and start talking about Jews. I only see this like 900 times a day. What's that?
What this guy does, this is actually this is known to be the typical. If you know the groper movement, this is actually what they rely on, and this is actually how they operate. Their main purpose, which they made clear from the very beginning, is to act as regular mainstream conservatives in order to try and sneak radical neo-Nazi ideas into regular conservatism, into mainstream conservatism, and change mainstream conservatism from within. So the whole movement is built on deception. The whole movement is built on lies. And so what this guy is doing here is that he's trying to create this image that the Jews they invent and run the adult entertainment industry, which is ridiculous.
Said it.
Which is ridiculous. It's not even true. It's completely false. Those who popularized it were not Jews. Those who popularized it first in America were not Jews. The Italians in Europe did it more than anybody else.
Yes,
The Italians
Jewish Italians
brought it to America.
The Zionist Italians.
The vast majority of consumers and actors and people who run it are not Jews, and so on. It's just one of those typical pathetic ways of some people who spend their whole day just, in their basement, wondering why life sucks so much for them, watching
always
porn
helps to be able to blame someone else.
Yeah, they watch porn all day and then think, why am I doing this? It's the Jews are making me do this.
They got me.
The Jews make me do this. It's not because of me. It's not because I'm weak. It's the Jews make me do it.
Carol B says, Candace protests, I'm only asking questions. Did you see she's on the list for like, they're having a contest for worst anti-Semite of the year or something like that?
Yeah.
You might want to discuss that. Hey, it's funny. Your boy Nick Fuentes wasn't on the list, man.
The funny thing is that she made a video. She talked about it and she got angry at it. She got angry about it and was like talking about how disgusted and repulsed she is by this, that she is now called an anti-Semite of the year, when she just spent so many months repeating all the most
insane conspiracy theories.
And really,
I'm just asking questions when I share this. I'm just asking questions about this.
You're surprised about this now? God.
Yeah. Funny. Fun times. Let's see. We'll go through a couple more. D Wood, will you put in live call to atheist experience? What for? If anyone wants to debate me, they can debate me. Not interested in calling up someone's show. D Wood, is it just me, or does this feel like a revival is on the way? Yes. But you don't know how much and to what extent. Could be a small revival. Could be a small revival followed by things getting worse. You don't know. But yes, feels like some kind of revival is coming. And the main reason is, and this comes up in this discussion here shortly, that one of the main ideas of the New Testament is, of the New Atheism. I said the New Testament. One of the main ideas of the New Atheism was that religion is just bad. It's just bad for society. Get rid of it. Get rid of this harmful thing, and society will get better. Then, okay, you get rid of it to an extent. You get rid of it for millions of people, and society gets massively worse and seems to be going completely insane. What happens? Well, if the idea about religion or Christianity in particular just being bad for the world, if you get rid of that, well, that kind of opens a lot of doors. It kind of opens a lot of doors for people actually examining with more of an open mind. If you think it's just bad and evil, it's like, why do I even want to listen to this? If you think, oh, it may actually be good for society, okay, tell me about it. Maybe I'll think about whether I'm going to accept these claims.
I'm seeing this comment here from John F. says, "Sorry, what archaeological evidence of the Christian God has anyone found?" I'm wondering what
Does
you
he
expect.
know what archaeological?
Like, do you think we should find the bones of God or something?
Yeah. Archaeological evidence. What archaeological evidence for the immaterial creator of the universe have you found? This is, yeah. Thanks for doing a good impression of the new atheist for us. What is your archaeological proof of this?
I found God's bones buried here.
What are groypers? A futile attempt to resurrect the original Nazis. The ones who want that never met an original one. I did, they make you freeze. The ones who want that never met an original one. I did, they make you freeze. Interesting. You met one of the real guys. Yeah, it does. I mean, all these guys who like support all these things and they have no idea how disastrous it would be if they got what they want. I mean, it's like you can think of like an extreme example, like the people run around, all these, 17, 18, 19-year-olds run around as anarchists. These clowns can only function as anarchists because they have a society of laws that protects them from just getting the crap beat out of them by other people for saying stupid stuff, right? In other words, if these guys experienced real anarchy, no laws to protect them, and they would just get completely humiliated and crushed right in front of people, then they would stop advocating for anarchy. But you have all these people who think, hey, this idea makes sense in my mind. Let's get rid of all the laws and we'll do what we want. Wouldn't that be great? Yay! And people have stupid ideas in their minds. And if they ever come close to getting what they want, they find it ends in complete disaster. The gropers would be like that.
Well, the good thing about this is that these are just people who will talk big online. In real life, they are not people who actually matter. They don't turn up for votings or things like that. So there is no risk attached to this. There's no big risk attached to this. They're not like the original Nazis. They're just a bunch of pathetic losers who want to complain online and never want to actually live with the real life consequences of the things that they advocate for. They would. They would never actually want to live in a Nazi environment. They would die.
Yep. Especially since they're all pathetic little weaklings, all these gropers. They're all pathetic little weaklings. And like, hey, let's go ahead and bring that back. Maybe the guy with the little mustache had the right idea. Shut up, loser.
It reminds me of the military. When I went to the military in Turkey, one of my observations, which is very ironic, was that those who always act like I am proud, I support everything that my military does. You see, I'm strong. Those who act like that, once they join the compulsory military, end up being the ones who always look for a loophole and for an opportunity to get out of, to escape responsibility and all of that. It's kind of funny. This is kind of how the gropers are to me.
The seal of the prophet said, "It's easy for you Christians. It's easy for you Christians. Jews have actual laws to follow. We don't get to just accept Jesus Christ and then we are saved. We have to pay in blood and sweat." Hey, you're making a good case for accepting Jesus Christ to be saved.
Yep.
No, but seal of the prophets, Christians do have laws to follow. It's just we don't believe that we are saved by following those laws. Why? Because we're going to fall short. We're going to fall short of that, and therefore we need a savior. And that would be Jesus Christ.
And now you're going to have other Christians come in and say, wrong.
Yeah, they will be humiliated if they tested me on that. My friend's church, OAC, teaches an allegorical interpretation of Genesis. Can the Bible be understood allegorically? Well, Timothy, I mean, the Bible uses a variety of different types of language and literary devices and stuff. Some lots of passages in the Bible are clearly allegorical. Like you couldn't understand it if you were taking it literally and not allegorically. Parables of Jesus, if you're taking them as, this is something that just happened or something like that, that's not how they're to be understood and so on. But here's the issue. Genesis is written like straightforward historical narrative. It sounds like it's just talking about what happened and so on. But also, something that you have to consider as a Christian is God also created the universe. God also created the universe, and he created you with a brain. So you have a text, and it's saying, it's telling you things. You have the universe, which you can figure out, you can figure out various things about, so on. And so if you want to interpret Genesis allegorically, yes, there are plenty of people who do that. And part of that would be explaining why you're interpreting that allegorically when it sounds like just historical narrative of what God's doing. But these are the things that you do.
It's a strange thing to interpret allegorically.
It would be awesome if P. Diddy comes out as Muslim, so Dawa clowns embrace yet another trafficker. That would be cool. That would be my favorite conversion since Andrew Tate.
Well, during my time in prison, I was introduced to a wonderful religion, and I decided I want to be part of that. Islam. It means submission and love.
And I'm all about submission. Oh yeah. What would be awesome, like best thing ever, is if he converted to Islam and then started saying, "See, I'm just being persecuted for my faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala," and like 2 billion Muslims rallied around him. "You see, he's being persecuted. That's the only reason. He attacked the Matrix. The Matrix is coming for him.
They have no evidence. He's innocent."
Comrade Mike Wingeling said, "I'm sorry, but what are the odontological proof of the Christian Sky Daddy's existence?" Odontological. I don't know.
That's powerful.
Let's see. Last one was jump back in this video. Steven Pinker proved society improved with non-religious ideas, ChatGPT, so why use few moments of panic and failure to undermine long-term pattern? Cancer. I can't tell if you're joking here, Shia, or if you take yourself seriously. If you take yourself seriously, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Have you read Steven Pinker's book about what's it called? Better Angels of Our Nature?
Nope.
I want to say I read it, but I started reading it and it was just it went on forever and it was kind of boring. He makes
like
good
Steven
points in
Pinker.
there. He makes good points, as it seems, for how society has gotten better and better and better and improved, and it seems that the future is bright despite it looking not like that. However, it is so long-winded and boring, I couldn't get through it. So.
Well, the people who argue this normally don't realize that the ideas that they're championing, even though non-religious people have those ideas, that they are very frequently groundless on given an atheist framework, and that they actually arose from religious ideas. And then so you got the religion, and the religion says that God commands these various things, and here are the ideals, and here are the virtues. And then later on, those ideas have been so successful in society that everyone in the society adopts them, whether they believe in the religion or not. And then the people who have absorbed these ideas have them in their heads and in their society, and they're thinking, but we don't believe in the religion, therefore the religion is not a necessary part of this. And so just abandon the religion, and hey, look at all these atheist ideas that are doing such great things in society. You didn't get those from atheism, sports. All right, we ready to jump back into this?
Because I don't think that it's a good way of doing things. Again, my attraction to Christianity is really more of...
I'll go back because I don't want to interrupt there, but what a cool spot they're in. Are they in New York? That looks like my old church.
Interesting.
That looks exactly like my old church in Queens, New York.
Interesting.
They may be in my old church from Queens, New York.
You own the church. That's impressive,
No,
man.
but that is interesting spot there. I'm going to try and read something so I can tell. I don't know. Let's see. All right, let's just
Been
watch
for
it.
you.
So I don't like pedestals because I don't think that it's a good way of doing things. Again, my attraction to Christianity is really more of the humility and the meekness and the fact that you're fallible. Over and over again, you sin. You know you admit that you're a sinner, and so by so doing, you don't you try your best not to judge others. But then, in terms of people using me, I don't feel used, but I do sense an excitement when it comes to a rekindling of religion, not so much as politics, but the religious foundations of Western society, of America, of course, and then Britain, and in the other places where Christianity was put down, was ridiculed, was likened to Islam and other religions, was called irrational. People who are Christians mocked and called stupid and irrational. And so I find that there's this excitement if someone like me can come back to Christianity and appreciate what it is, aside from even believing in God, just appreciating the outcome of this culture, I think is a big step. And so I don't see it as a political, it may have something political, but it is first and foremost, it's a cultural awakening or reawakening, or maybe a cultural confidence that needs to come back.
How much?
Good phrase, cultural confidence. Western society lost its cultural confidence. It said, they eventually said, nope, all cultures are equal. And then that eventually became, all cultures are equal except ours, which is the worst of all. And meanwhile, the entire world wanted to come to your culture, which is supposedly the worst of all.
That's a very, very nice way to put it. I would just say the West lost their balls.
They lost their testicular fortitude.
Of your experience in the last few years of coming to Christianity has been a result of cultural considerations, and how much a result of personal considerations, or perhaps even theological considerations? Perhaps you can walk us through what it is that brought you to Christ.
It's personal, completely personal. I was in a place of complete darkness and crisis. I was terrified. I was confused. I was in this depression. I just felt this emptiness and darkness. And I resisted all invitations to spirituality because I thought, that's not me. And even at my darkest moment, when, again, I was talking to one of many therapists who said, perhaps you're spiritually bankrupt and you should try considering doing something about that. And I thought, not me. I left Islam. My associations with the concept of God was a God of punishment and a God of anger and a God in whose name so many terrible things were said and done over centuries. So I wasn't up for that. But I realized that as human beings, we are more than just reason, and that there's more than the material and the rational. And that it's not either or. It's not that you either choose reason or faith. I think you can have both of them if you understand to keep them separate. So it was 100% personal. But then...
Interested in what she's saying about keep them separate. Because, and I say that because a new atheist would hear that very differently from possibly the way she means it. Keep your reason and your faith separate. A new, the one of the ideas of the new atheism is that when you say you have faith in God or faith in Jesus or something like that, then what you're saying is you have a belief that flies in the face of all the evidence, and you just say, I'm going to believe it anyway, even though there's no reason to believe this. Whereas if you go back to like the medieval theologians, when they talked about truths of reason and truths of faith, these were two different ways of knowing that things are true. And if you're an atheist and you hear that truths of reason, truths of faith, and you interpret that through your modern definition of faith, you're not going to know what these guys were actually talking about. So if you go back to the medievals, they were talking about truths of reason and truths of faith. Truths of reason were things that the unaided human mind could figure out. Like you can sit there, or even using some sort of scientific method, investigating the world, you could find things out. So there are truths of reason. If you can find it out without God telling you, or without some revelation, telling you or something like that, then that's a truth of reason. But they believed in truths of faith. Truths of faith would be, since you believe in God and Jesus and this revelation and so on, what do you believe because of that? They believed you can have all sorts of reasons for believing in Christianity and for believing in the Bible, but once you've accepted the Bible, then you'd say, okay, I've accepted the Bible. So like, suppose I say, okay, given all the miracles of Jesus and the way he impacted the world and, his followers' claims that he had risen from the dead and appeared to them, because of all of this, I'm going to believe in Christianity. Okay, now that you believe in Christianity, here are all these other things that are part of Christianity, that are part of things that Jesus said. If Jesus says, here's what's going to happen in the future, and you say, okay, I believe that because Jesus said, well, notice that's not something that you're looking around at the world and you're saying, here's what's going to happen in the end times. But it's not something that you have no reason for. Your reason is you believe in Jesus, and therefore you're going to believe in what he says, even though you can't directly go out and investigate whether what he says is going to happen. And so that would be a truth of faith. I believe in Jesus for all these reasons, and because I believe in him, I believe in this thing that's part of his message, even though I can't directly investigate that and so on. So anyway, so those are truths of reason and truths of faith. I don't know if that's exactly what Ayaan means here, but it would be very different from what an atheist hears when he hears something about faith and reason. And she says keeping them separate, that actually wouldn't fit entirely, because you can have something that is a truth of reason and a truth of faith. So that would be something like belief in God. You could say, I believe in God because I have all these arguments and this shows that God exists. You could also say, hey, I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus, and Jesus talked about God, so I believe in it because of, as a truth of faith and so on. So you can have overlap. Not sure exactly what she's referring to here, but it is important to clarify because of the way 21st century atheists interpret the word faith, which has, as far as I can tell, almost nothing to do with with what Christians in the first century or for many centuries after that meant by faith. When they talked about faith, it was a kind of trust that you have in Jesus or in God because of what you know. So I know about God because this, and therefore I trust him for the future. I trust him when I'm going through this rough time. I have faith. I have faith in these things. Very different from what atheists think you mean by faith.
Beast. The funny thing is, I'm still trying to find out what church it is. I think it's in London though. So
yeah, I looked at it because it looks exactly like the layout and the entrance and the upper level and lower level. I actually looked it up while I was talking. The floor is different because you could see the sort of checkered pattern on the floor, and the church I went to in Queens also has a checkered pattern on the floor, but it's different. And so I was like, did they redo the floor, or is that just a different church? But
no,
yeah,
it's a different church. I'm reverse image searching and trying to find out what it is because I'm kind of interested. However, as I was doing that, I saw that somebody that they posted this interview in Alex O'Connor's subreddit, Cosmic Skeptic subreddit, and somebody. One of the top comments there is saying he's slipping. He will be a Christian apologist within a year or two, probably.
He's slipping, and then we will destroy him if he turns to the dark side.
He's slipping.
He's slipping. Hey, fun little story. Is I haven't been to the church in years, but fun little story about the church in Queens. It was the building is a big cube, and it was an elk lodge. Not a lot of elk lodges anymore, but that was a popular like lodge. There was the Moose Lodge and the Elk Lodge and so on. Anyway, it was an elk lodge. Still has a big elk out in front of it and so on. And the church, when they were started, they needed a location to rent just for church services on Sunday. So they're renting the main room from the Elk Lodge just for Sundays. But it was funny because the Elk Lodge, they would have like ladies mud wrestling and stuff on Wednesday. So Christians would have to get there really early on Sunday to clean up the mess from their mud wrestling and stuff like that. So they could have their
where
church.
was that?
It's
Where
New Life
was that?
Fellowship. New Life Fellowship in Queens. It used to be. If you look up New Life Fellowship Queens, it's a big cube. The building is a big cube, which was with a big elk out in front because it was an elk lodge. But the place is like over a century old. Anyway, the elks started diminishing over the years, and so they announced that they're going to sell the building. They're going to sell their elk lodge, and the church put in a bid to buy it because that's where they've been doing church services, but they were just renting it for Sundays. And so they wanted to buy it. They put in a bid, and then they got massively outbid by some real estate developer who's going to tear down the building and then put up an apartment complex, right? So they're like, okay, well, this sucks. Let's go find another place to do our church services. Even though we've been doing our church services here, we cannot outbid this guy. Anyway, then all of a sudden, some time goes by, and they get a call. Saying that guy has withdrawn his bid because the city, Queens has declared that building to be a historical. What do they call it? There's certain buildings that they deem like historical. You can't destroy them because of their historical relevance. So he could not. The guy wanted to tear it down to build apartments, and they said you cannot destroy this because of its historical value in architecture and so on. And so he withdrew his bid, and they said they're going to take the Christians' bid for the church, right? So they have to go down with like a guy from city council and go meet with them for the whatever permits and so on. Anyway, they go down there. It's an Orthodox Jewish guy, said like yarmulke, beard and so on. It's an Orthodox Jewish guy, and he says, okay, got to come fill out this paperwork and stuff like this. Just so you know, it's a historical landmark, blah, 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 blah. And they said, this is amazing. The timing couldn't have been better because that guy would have destroyed the stuff. And now we have it for our church just because you guys labeled it a historical landmark. And his Jewish guy said, oh yeah, we labeled it a historical landmark for you. He says, we've seen what you guys are doing in the community. We have enough apartments. We see what you guys are doing in the community. And we're like, we need more of that. So let's label this place a historical landmark so that this guy doesn't take and then the church can have it. So they actually did it for the church to have. And,
are you saying that the Jewish guy saved the
Jewish guy, Orthodox Jewish guy? Well, I mean, it's the city council, but yep, Jewish guy was fully on board with that and was the one who broke it down. Because they actually do cool stuff. They built like a little medical area down in the basement, and there's a place where like homeless people can come in there. Homeless people can walk into the church, hand over their clothes and stuff, go take a shower, and put on a robe and eat a meal while people at the church will like wash the person's clothes and stuff. But it's funny because it's like you've got like PhD professors and stuff in there washing the clothes of homeless people while the homeless people grab meals and stuff like that and then can get checked out in the medical facilities and stuff. Anyway, they do cool stuff. So it looks exactly like this church except for possibly the floor. Do not know why that is. Wonder if they copied them up. No, they couldn't have copied because it was an elk lodge. Okay. All right. One of life's great mysteries, ladies and gentlemen, that shall never be understood. Back to Ayaan.
Of course, I don't live in a vacuum. I look around me and I saw similar in many ways. I know my story is unique, but in many ways it's not that unique. There's a great deal of, I'll say, disconnection in our society. And people have left whatever it is that rooted them in their society and in their families and in their communities. And for many in the West, that was Christianity. And so I've come to see that it's not just the personal, but on a community level, even on a civilizational level, the throwing away of Christianity was, I think, what was the saying, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so you can be like Richard Dawkins, an avowed atheist, and still appreciate the legacy of Christianity and the roots of this culture in Christianity.
As Richard Dawkins does, I just joined him in Oxford to as part of his tour for a show, and when I saw him, I told him that I'd been to Evensong the night before, and I said it almost a little bit embarrassed, as if to say, you know, to the world's most famous atheist, you know, I quite like the choir. I went to Evensong last night, and you know what he said? Me too. I just went to a different one at a different college.
Yes.
When you came out
Did you
as a
catch
Christian in...
That was a funny little story. You guys catch that? So I don't even know what that refers to, but it's, I guess, some Christian hymn singing or something like this. And Alex went to it, and he was... Hey, did you know, Richard, I went to this? Oh, yes, I went to that too. I love that. I love the hymns and Christmas carols and cathedrals. Would be a shame if all this atheism put all of that in the hands of Islam, but, you know, it's what we're doing.
I very much appreciate that.
Hey, Deborah Friedman said, the floor might be new, and it is your Queen's Church. She said that is your Queen's Church. So AP saying one thing with his dumb image searches, and Deborah Friedman is saying something very different.
What's that church called? Tell me.
New Life Fellowship, Queens, New York. I don't know how I can make it any simpler. Again, looks exactly the same to me inside, except the floor. I looked up a picture. The floor was different. So I don't know if they changed I haven't been there for many, many years, so.
Unheard. The principal reaction that I saw from people is that here is an essay that talks about Trump, it talks about Putin, it talks about China, it talks about politics, and mentions the name of Jesus, I think, precisely once, mentions Richard Dawkins, mentions cultural factors, and a lot of people read this essay, Why I Am Now a Christian, and heard essentially a political treatise and thought, is Ayaan a Christian for essentially political reasons disconnected from the truth of the Christian doctrine? Since then, it sounds like your story has been much more personal, but people might still ask the same question. How much of this has to do with you believing that the doctrines of Christianity are true? That's also one of Richard's biggest problems or critiques, is that we're all delighted to see that this has changed your life and transformed you and that you're happy again. Yeah. I mean, that nobody can disagree about that. But people will raise this question mark. Do you believe that it's true? Does that even matter to you?
He's actually right. It was the essay. She wrote an article first. And that's what sounded, we read that article in a show. And that's where she did sound like it was just pragmatic and political. In effect, atheism doesn't have enough to unite people against the forces that will come to attack Western society, namely what she drew attention to, Islam and communism. Atheism does not provide the resources to actually stand against this, and therefore you need something stronger that has shown historically, when people took it seriously, that it can withstand these things, and therefore we need to become Christians. That's what it was actually. Yeah, so he's right. It was an essay first, and it sounded like completely pragmatic and political. And then in later interviews, it was sounded like, no, I actually believe this stuff is true. And so it's good he actually pointed that out. So,
I don't know, man. I don't really see it. I fail to see it. Maybe, I don't know. But it seems to me that the Christian world is rather weak when it comes to defending against an ideology and a belief system that is out there to come and to be as aggressive and dominant as possible. It was at some point in the times of empires and kingdoms and royalties and so on. It was at some point strong, but it seems to me that Christians are very weak Christians have been very weak. And in fact, the weakness of Christians has very much led to this major infiltration and
hence me saying until recently. But dude, I mean, up through the mid 20th century, where do you see that? Where do you see Christians are just falling apart as communism and Islam are coming on? What are you talking about? 14 centuries they would not allow Islam to get a foothold in Europe. There were places that Islam conquered the majority of lands that were Christian. But
here's the thing:
this sort of Christianity that's so tolerant. It's so tolerant that we will allow you to just walk in and overthrow our society. That's a pretty recent development. Even when you had Christians who were on the peaceful end of the spectrum and coming up with like just war theory and stuff, and hey, we're not out to subjugate the world or anything like that. It was never to the extent yeah, just come in and walk all over us, and we'll turn the other cheek. We'll apply that teaching to society, and we'll just be so insanely tolerant that we don't care if you're subjugating us. We will gladly be subjugated so that we can appear as the nice guys. Until the past several decades, where is that? Because you're saying it's Christianity.
But the funny thing is, much of the very, very strong resistance to the invasions by Islam that you were talking about came from, sorry to say this, but came from the Catholic and Orthodox communities.
That's true.
Not from the Protestant communities. And
I think it wasn't happening in Protestant areas, right? The people in Eastern Europe and Southern Europe were Catholics. Those are the ones who are responding. And by the way, you could say part of the weakness is now Protestants who haven't historically had to deal with the problem nearly as much as Orthodox or Catholics, they're very susceptible to the idea that Islam is not the problem because they didn't have to deal with it, right? It was other Christians dealing with that sort of problem, and so they're not used to thinking of it as this actual threat to our existence. It is an existential threat to your society because they didn't have to deal with it historically. So yeah, there are all kinds of issues, but I mean, really, you basically in the 20th century, Christians looked back to all these areas where they went too far and did things that they weren't supposed to and fought wars over things that they should not have been fighting wars over, and then, tried to colonize all these other areas when it's really for financial gain and so on. So you just go over and take over an area to profit from them and so on. And they look back at this, and instead of just correcting the course and saying, okay, here are all the things that we weren't supposed to do and we did, let's stop doing them, it basically shamed themselves and get shamed by others into going like too far in the opposite direction. Like in order to atone for the sins of the past, we just have to surrender Western civilization and let it be conquered. And that's how we can somehow right the wrongs of the past, even though that rights absolutely no wrongs at all.
Here is the thing. Western people had some, especially the English-speaking world, had some good ideas about in the last few centuries. The whole idea of enlightenment and liberalism. This whole thing of listen, man, we have been fighting each other. We have been fighting and killing each other forever over which religion, over which denomination, which church is going to rule. How about we stop doing that? How about we separate church from state so that no denomination is any longer in charge, and we no longer have any oppression and any infighting and so on. And it seems like a good idea. It seems like a good idea if you're dealing with Christians, if you're dealing with fellow Christians who are going to separate church from state and are going to be non-discriminating against each other. Once you become naive enough to think, oh yeah, look, this is working out very well. Look, this is working out very well. We're being peaceful. We're not killing each other anymore over our differences. It's very nice. How about now let's invite those other people, those Muslims over here. that's where you go wrong, because you can't. This works with Christians, because you are Christians, because you are good to each other, because you don't politicize your religion any longer, and you don't fight anymore. However, when the others come in, whose religion takes politics to its very core, it doesn't work anymore. They come and they want to humiliate and destroy you.
Yeah, Carl Sargon of Akkad, he talked about this because he was more aggressive against religion in general, like, 10, 15 years ago than he has been in recent years. And he said one of the things that affected him is he had all his views that are associated with the liberalism of the past, and that was very attractive to him. He said, but over time he realized that all the champions of the liberalism of the past basically took for granted that you're talking about a bunch of Christians in a Christian society. And so there's an interesting amount of overlap there with the founding fathers of the U.S. who say, yes, we can have these freedoms and so on, but only if we maintain an emphasis on virtue and on religion. That's the only way you have a population that can have a sort of certain threshold of self-control that allows you to have these freedoms because you'll handle them responsibly. And if someone doesn't, you would address that and so on. But the society can have these freedoms and so on. And so there's basically everyone is realizing if you take away a certain framework and certain ideas and you just say, here are all these things that we grant to, you're not going to be able to stand against certain other things. I think of it in terms of ecology. If you have an ecosystem, it's understood that in that ecosystem, everything reaches a kind of equilibrium in the ecosystem. In other words, you have various species and they're all fitting together to have a stable ecosystem. And the reason you get an equilibrium, so things remain steady, is if one species all of a sudden explodes, becomes way bigger, well, guess what? That species will eat up all the resources that species eats, and then they'll start dying off because the ecosystem can't sustain them, and they'll drop back down to a sustainability level. And so you end up with a kind of equilibrium, but then you have this concept of an invasive species. An invasive species will come in, and these other species aren't ready for it. They can't endure this kind of. They're not used to dealing with that, and so something can just come in and steamroll them. But one of the other principles is you can have a species that exists in an ecosystem that is much more aggressive. In other words, it's constantly fighting. It's in an environment where it's constantly fighting. So you can have some sort of species and it lives in an environment where it's constantly fighting. Then that species enters an ecosystem where things are pretty stable and aren't always fighting. Well, guess what? This new aggressive species can just wreak havoc in there because nothing's fighting against it. No one knows, none of the other species have a clue how to fight this thing, and they're less aggressive and it's more aggressive. But that's like ideas. That's like ideas too. You can have Western civilization and say, hey, let's kind of get past this. We're going to fight over everything. Why? Because we need to. We need to make certain rules about, I'm not going to attack you for disagreeing with me. You're not going to attack me for disagreeing with you. And we need that. We need these fundamental ground rules. And then you have something come along that's much more aggressive and is attacking, and you're maintaining that idea. Well, we've already decided that I'm not going to attack you over your ideas and stuff. So we're just going to have to let these ideas spread throughout society. When these ideas, the new ideas that are coming into your society are not, hey, let's all get along. It's, we're going to subjugate you. We have to subjugate the entire world. Yes. And you're just saying, oh, let's let that idea flourish because we've accepted the idea that we're going to let people we disagree with spread their ideas.
Let's be stupid. This is why we need crusades. Well, this is why we need a new crusade.
But a peaceful crusade. If you really believed what you're saying, then you would have a crusader tattoo on you. Uh-oh. I think he's serious, guys. I think he's serious.
10th crusade is going to start soon.
Very rude. Very rude. All right. Back to the calm one in this discussion.
I believe that it's true and it matters very much. And I think also I got a deluge of emails and papers all asking the same question, to what degree is this personal? Is the political masquerading as personal, in addition to the people who were saying, I prayed for you or come to my denomination. No, I believe it. What I will not do, which is, I think, hard for people like Richard, is take my 21st century brain and explain past century events. But I'm reading a lot. I'm reading the Gospels, I'm reading Old Testament, New Testament, I'm reading the apologetics. And a world is opening up for me that in many ways I find so fascinating and enriching. And I will not tell you that I can explain the miracles that took place in the past century. I can't explain them, but I do choose to believe in them. And that's a completely different attitude. And having that faith, faith, as you know, you have faith. This is, I think, where it's important to separate reason from faith.
Okay, I just want to. Now I think I'm understanding what she means by the separation of reason and faith, because you have the way the new atheists would draw that distinction. Then you have the way the medievals drew that distinction. But it sounds like she's saying, okay, we have these miracle reports. I don't know exactly how to understand those or to examine those the way we examine things nowadays, which is by scientific research and so on. I don't know how to examine it, but I believe in the miracles. But it's not something I can go out. So it is actually similar to what the medievals said about the things that you can investigate for yourself and the things that you believe in because you've sort of accepted the big picture. If you've accepted Christianity, you've accepted the Bible, and you believe it on that basis, rather than being able to go and investigate it directly. So she seems to be closer to the medieval distinction than she is to the modern atheist distinction.
I'm not going to prove it, and you don't need proof. You believe. And so having embarked on that path, I find what I read strengthens that faith more and more each day. And it's a pity. And this is sort of a statement to my fellow atheists, to lead a life of constantly fortifying yourself against faith. And then in that way, you create a counterfaith in non-faith. And you don't allow even a tiny opening, because you're creating these barriers around, you don't allow any. We used to say, one thing I liked about the Enlightenment, and I still do, is don't prejudge. Come to the table with no preconceived notions about what you're going to hear or see. And that's not what my fellow atheists were doing. They were just really fortifying themselves against ever believing. And they had very solid preconceived notions. And then that in itself became a gospel of its own. And so there is the new atheism. This is what we believe in, versus the people who believe in God. And then again, it has a bit of a tribal element to it, where this is, that's you and that's me.
People listening will think,
yes.
I just want to say that so in the world, lots of things are happening right now. While there is the ongoing war between Israel and Hezbollah, both sides have repeatedly said since yesterday that the other side violated the ceasefire.
Oh, is that what's going on right now?
Agreed to.
I thought they were agreeing to ceasefire.
But right now, it seems that the ceasefire is still holding, although a few firing between Hezbollah and Israel back and forth happened. It seems that there is no major assault from either side. However, as we're speaking, there are incoming reports that in Syria, the Islamist group HTS, they were assaulting Aleppo, a key city in Syria, which they were trying to take over. And apparently they planned for years this major attack. and they have brutally infiltrated and apparently have taken over Aleppo, and the Syrian government is now shutting down the airports, and it looks like it's going to lead to a new a new major event.
In other words, the civil war in Syria is going to be amped up right now. Your buddy Assad, guys, if you haven't been around in the past, Assad is a dirtbag and a dictator. But as we pointed out, he is better than the current alternatives. People never get their minds around it. They think, oh, look, Saddam Hussein, that's a bad dude. Let's get rid of him, not realizing Saddam Hussein was the only thing keeping all the jihadis in check because they were more scared of him. They're more scared of him. And they were like, hey, let's get rid of him and replace him with someone who's more friendly, more Western, more aligned with Western values. What happens? ISIS takes over. You get ISIS. Why? Because you took away the thing that they were afraid of. In other words, imagine a bunch of wolves wanting to rip things apart, and then a lion walks in the room. Okay, the lion is very, very dangerous, and the wolves will actually be scared of, would actually be scared of the lion. The lion could keep the wolves in check. And they say, let's get rid of the lion. Okay, and then the wolves start ripping everything apart. So that's what keeps happening. So it was actually, people actually took out Saddam, took out Gaddafi, and then became disturbed by what was replacing him. Assad has managed to remain in power by being completely brutal, and his enemies look, look how brutal he is. Just get rid of him. Just get rid of him. They're using that to try and install something that's more brutal, that will be worse for everyone. In other words, guys, you can actually think of it like this. So in our mindset in the West is we want a good, stable government. So two criteria: good and stable. Good and stable. And there's something else you could have, which is a bad but stable government. So that's like Saddam and Assad and so on. These guys can be brutal. They're very bad in certain ways, but they keep things stable because they will crush you if you get out of line. And so we in the West, we look and say, oh, they have a bad, stable government. Let's get rid of the bad part, and then they can become a good, stable government. And so we help people get rid of Saddam and so on. And then you don't get a good, stable government. You don't even have the bad, stable government. You have chaos. You have chaos is what you have. And then jihadis take over. And so just be aware. Yeah. Just be aware of when you want to get rid of something you don't like, it could be replaced by something worse.
Yeah, what's happening right now is that lots of people think that it's a fight between Assad and the rebels. It's not really like that. It's a fight between Assad and the major rebels, which are the Free Syrian Army, that have been fighting. That are kind of a mix of Islamists and democratic people who want to establish a kind of a mix of it, which doesn't seem nice at all, but they are still the less extreme. But they kind of they failed to achieve their goals, and Assad very much established his power again. Aside from that, there are the Kurdish groups in the north who are possibly, in my opinion, the only mostly good ones in this entire conflict. And then there is ISIS, which is against everyone involved. And then there are independent jihadist organizations that go against ISIS and Al-Qaeda and others that want to establish a purely Islamic state and rule by strict Sharia and want to punish any secular movements. And one of those is the terrorist organization HTS, which is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Salvation Army of Salvation of Syria or something like that. And those people are really, really bad people. Those people are really bad people. They want to take over and they want to install Islamic brutal Sharia law. And those people are currently taking over Aleppo. And those people are threatening to be the main power. And those people are by no means people that anybody should support, especially Christian organizations and Christian groups in Syria are afraid of this development, because they are saying, yes, we all know Assad has big problems and all that. However, under these guys, we're not safe. They will kill us. We have to flee.
Yeah.
So
Assad will be brutal to anyone who's getting out of line. If you're not, that's why you have stability in society. Well, I mean, until things started breaking down, but yeah, there are worse things. What's that nursery rhyme that Dawkins talks about? Something about losing nurse for fear of something worse.
I do not know.
He always quotes that to show, hey, just because there's something you don't like doesn't mean that it wouldn't be replaced by something worse if you got rid of the thing that you don't like.
That's what they do.
That's happening over and over. So, guys, Assad may actually have a rougher time right now because he won't have the same ability to call upon reinforcements from Hezbollah and Iran that he's had in the past, and probably not as much help from Russia as in the past, because Russia's dealing with its own issues right now, namely Ukraine. So, might be facing some serious problems. Phil says, thank you for discussing Ayaan Hirsi Ali in your old church. You see, God is reminding you of good times. If that's my church, I'm not completely confident that it is, but some people have said yes, it is. I don't need a sky daddy. I don't need a sky daddy to tell me what is right and wrong. I do right because it's right, not because I'm told. Atheist that has absorbed Christian ideas. Yep, that is a good description. Who doesn't believe in God believes in anything. That is correct. Exhibit A is right on the screen. Talking about AP. The only way to save Western culture is to establish managed democracy and super Earth. I like the idea of super. I don't know what super Earth is, but I like it. AP, am not disrespecting Ayaan. Ayaan tend to believe in God, Jesus, which gave her comfort more than rational philosophy of Kant, Leibniz, Hegel. Ayaan tend to believe in God, Jesus, which gave her comfort more than rational philosophy. Not sure what you mean. Met many young people in Cairo who are atheists and agnostics, hoping for a culture shift here in coming decades, and hopefully, yeah. See, what if Mike? What up?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Kenya.
Kenya who?
Kenya, open the door, please.
Was that a book of lame dad jokes?
My wife just handed me this early. She was cleaning up, and she said, "If you don't find anything to say, you can just read these jokes."
Knock jokes for kids. Yeah, keep that handy for when you're live. Yeah. What if Mike Winger is secretly Spider-Man? Think about it. Nerd, fascinated by nerd things, make jokes that no one laughs at, etc. Yeah, except for Mike Winger is a little weakling who would never be able to fight against a real villain.
That's what they thought about Spider-Man too.
Well, but Mike Winger is would be the villain. I would be Spider-Man. Prediction: Miss Cancer Brain will loop back to Islam. What? Miss Cancer Brain will loop back to Islam? Ayaan? Don't think so. Stephen. Mark. Stephen H says, AP, do it for the children. I think that's talking about getting a computer. There's weakness, and then there's not of this worldness. Christians struggle to navigate how hard to fight for this world. Yeah. I would definitely draw the line at letting Islam subjugate all your future descendants and so on.
Why? Just let it happen.
It'd be a big lie.
Let it happen. Maybe it's going to be fun.
The UK conquered half the Muslim world when it was atheist. Now that it's Christian, it's getting Islamized. AP is right. Oh, that's Comrade Mike Wingeline spouting nonsense. The UK conquered half the Muslim world when it was atheist. Now that it's Christian, it's getting Islamized. AP is right. Only Dawkins can save Europe. Thank you, comrade. Western nations are less Christian than they used to be with bad governments, which is why they're letting all these bad things go crazy in our countries.
That's pretty racist.
Have you guys been persecuted by law for your thoughts? Thought I saw a video about your co-host being wanted for thought crimes, opinion crimes. I am new. Yes, I have. I was locked up in Dearborn, Michigan for going against Islam there. And AP has arrest warrants from Turkey for speaking against Islam. So, guys, this stuff happens in the real world here.
Arrest Warren G.
Capitol Hill Autonomy Zone is the capital of the new atheist. That's funny. What are AP's thoughts on the partition of Syria, Alawite site, Assyrian state, Kurd state, and give the rest to Israel? He's already broken that down. Which live stream was that the person can San here can go and see?
That was 2 live streams ago, but I also posted it on my Twitter. I posted a new updated.
He did post an updated map, but he actually drew a complete map during a live stream 2 live streams ago, so you can go scroll through and find that. And also HTS versus Turk occupation, what would be worse?
What? HTS versus Turk occupation. It's the same thing. The Turkish government is currently they are very much behind the Islamic terrorists, behind the Islamic jihadists in Syria. They have their own jihadist organizations, including the Turkmen Islamist organization that works together with these Islamists and so on. Turkey is really heavily involved in the civil war right now, and they also want to get rid of the Kurdish population. To be very, very honest, I don't. It might sound a little bit callous, but I don't really care about the Syrian population. I don't really care about the Syrian people.
This is why I can't let you talk on a Christian show. I don't care about those people. They're not from my group, and therefore they should be exterminated. What do I care?
I don't really care about the Syrian people.
I don't care about them.
Considering that they are the ones who end up ruining their country and ending up in a civil war. I do care about the Christian population and the Kurdish population, and both of those would be under threat under both HTS and the Turkish occupation. So, but HTS would be worse. Alhamdulillah.
Very rude, very rude, very rude. All right, here we go.
Well, no, atheism is just a disbelief in God. It's here's a worldview that's being presented to me, and I'm saying I don't believe it. What is, in your view, has formerly one of the most important figures in the New Atheist movement? What can you now see as the gospel of New Atheism? What is that? What is New Atheism's 10 Commandments? What does it look like as a worldview?
I think the reason why it was called New Atheism was that it had this, what do you call it, this evangelizing aspect to it. Because yes, you're right, atheism, or to be an atheist, is simply to take on the attitude of, say, I don't think there's any proof. Convince me. If I see evidence of the existence of God, I might change my mind. So that attitude hardened into something along the lines of, there is no proof, there is no evidence, therefore I don't believe in God. And not only that, people who believe in God are wicked, they're dangerous, they're stupid, they're superstitious, and therefore we must evangelize against them. And I think in hindsight, I'm speaking for myself, that was a very unhealthy attitude to take because you close off so much.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that New Atheism made?
Yes.
Talking.
Letting the ideas in your dumb heads out into the world to influence the world. Yes.
Existing is their biggest mistake.
Yes, that's the dumbest part. The dumbest part. Yeah, it's weird to talk about atheism being evangelistic, but that's like exactly what it became. It became, and we've talked about this at various times. There are certain ideologies which, in fact, maybe lots of ideologies do not focus on like everyone has to agree with me. The entire world needs to be presented with this, and so on. You're not out trying to convert the world. So Islam wants to actually subjugate the world. Christians want to at least preach the gospel to the entire world. But communism is very aggressive. And then basically the characteristic feature of the new atheism was that it became like that. It became something that seeks to convert the world. And it's evangelistic. It's evangelistic in the sense that evangelism is spreading the good news, but atheism had its own good news. And it's, hey, look at the way the world is. Don't you like science? If we all become atheists, we'll get this scientific utopia. And it became like the good news of atheism. And hey, look, religion is about to destroy the world. But if we just can convince everyone to become atheists, then we'll save the world. We are here. We are your saviors. Science and reason and rationality. We're going to save the world. We just need to all become atheists and we'll save the world. So
I'll be saved.
Function very much as a religion.
If you believe in it, if you just believe in it, then you will be saved. You know,
if you just believe in the new atheism, you will be saved. If you confess with your mouth there is no God, and the new atheists and the new atheism is your savior, you will be saved. That's the message.
There is the one thing which is you mentioned one of the some of the bad aspects of Christianity, for example, which you acknowledge here as well, which is that it is about preaching the gospel and not about taking over. This is one of those things that kind of holds me back still. You know, if Christianity was more about conquering the world and
humiliating your enemies,
I would be more drawn toward Christianity. But the whole pacifistic aspect of it.
All right, you heard it here, folks. If Christians all agree that we're going to subjugate the world, then AP will be fully on board.
For me, it's the statement that all religions are the same. They are not. I grew up as a Muslim. I'm a Christian now. They're completely different. So it was a huge mistake to throw them all in one bucket and make this general statement about all religions being the same.
That is an interesting point, and I don't want to keep interrupting here, but that was an interesting issue in that. So what you just said, Alex asked her, what was the biggest mistake of the new atheism? And she said, acting like all religions are the same. And it's weird because you had Dawkins and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens. They're all very clear. No, there's one religion that's especially bad that we want to guard against. They're all clear that these aren't the same. But among the followers, it was, yes, you have to basically attack everything equally. And that was a criticism that AP got for a long time. AP, you're criticizing Islam? No, you have to criticize everything equally. And AP was, no, I'm going to kind of focus on the one that wants to kill me. I don't really care a whole lot about the rest. I am concerned about that one. But he would be blasted regularly for not treating all religions the same. And so it's this interesting dynamic where she's saying that the problem of the new atheism is that they treated all religions the same. The leaders of the movement didn't. The leaders of the movement said, no, there's a hierarchy in terms of how bad these things are. But among the popular atheists, I just saw this. In fact, it was lots of people at the popular new atheist level were attacking Christianity more because over time they fell prey to manipulation, and that if you attack Islam, it's because you're a racist against brown people and so on. So attacking Christianity was much safer. And if you attack Islam, you're going to be, get all kinds of death threats and so on. So the result was no one's interested. The result was we'll focus on attacking Christianity. It's safest to attack Christianity. And so you ended up with that. But what you would have, even at the level of, Dawkins, even at the levels of the leadership, would be the idea that Islam is worse in its consequences. Islam is worse in what it strives for than other religions. But it would be the idea that they're all kind of equally absurd and out of touch with reality. And so all religions, even according to the leaders, would have been silly for not being atheistic, even though they can be different in what they produce in the world. So they were treating all religions as the same in a sense. And then you ended up with a subgroup, large subgroup among the popular level new atheists who focused on attacking Christianity more. Those are the ones who ended up sort of paving the way for Islam. And so anyway, lots of interesting. So you have some diversity in the new atheism as far as what they thought on this issue. But she's saying the biggest problem was treating religions like they're the same in the sense they all have to be attacked. They're all equally silly and so on.
Number one. Number two, I think that because of this attitude, religion is, it's superstition. It's untrue. It's unintelligent. I think a false dichotomy was created about, you can either have faith, you can be religious, or you can be a man of reason, but you can't be both. And that, I think, then created even more confusion, especially for young people looking for role models, looking to answer the question, what's the purpose and meaning of life? Why are we here? How do I relate to my fellow human beings? What's the good life? So those are two major ones. And then three, I think the organizing and then trying to mobilize people to choose atheism with both of these points, that I think then all it did was weaken and degenerate belief in Christianity, and it strengthened other religions. It strengthened Islam because it's consistent with what, for instance, members of the Muslim Brotherhood say about Christianity. They say it's false, it's weak, Muhammad is the last word. And so you listen to the atheists and they say they're saying it themselves. And it also opened, I think, the door for other pseudo-religions. Many of us have been discussing what wokeism is. And in many ways it has, I know it is neo-Marxism or it's cultural Marxism as some call it, but it is with religious zeal that some people believe in it and don't question it. And there is this void, this spiritual need that people have, and they found it in wokeism because wokeism insists on justice and young people seeking to do what is right and what's good and what's just now find it in these either false gods or are in fact converting to Islam or are feeling quite frustrated with their own legacy. They've been told Christianity is synonymous with, it's the religion of the white man. And the white man, the white heterosexual man, is an exploiter, a slaveholder, a colonizer. He's awful. And so you can't be Christian, you have to be something else. And I think that in itself has created a lot of, and I think it's unintended, but anxieties, depressions, confusion. And so these are all things that we have to grapple with.
So along those lines, in the West, you had mostly Christian populations. You had mostly Christian populations in the West. And so when the new atheists are going around on college campuses and so on, and they're attacking religion, it's Christians there, right? So it's Christians who are hearing this message. It's young Christians who are away from their parents for the first time. And they're the ones hearing, hey, smart people reject religion, dumb people accept what they're told from their parents and so on. And then you had a lot of people leaving Christianity and becoming atheist. And so Christianity as a cultural force was diminished. And then you came along and you had Muslims attacking Christianity. And guess what? The atheists were attacking Christianity too. And so now you have everyone attacking Christianity. And then you had this additional layer of people who are looking around going, oh man, Christianity is just getting crushed by everyone. Everyone's just going after Christianity. What's going on here? I guess Christianity is weak, so we need something else. We need to adopt something else. And what happens? The people convert to Islam. Islam is strong, Christianity weak. Or more people become atheists. You see, Christianity can't save society, so we need to even go harder with the atheism and so on. And eventually, then you have people like Ayaan going, actually, all these people turning away from Christianity, that seems to be the source of our problems over here, and going insane and clinging to all these weird new ideologies and people converting to Islam. The problems in society seem to be connected to massive numbers of people leaving Christianity. Weird stuff. But people are seeing it now.
Been a time when you believed that religion was not just wrong, but evil, a bad force for the world, wrapped up in this new atheist movement. You've had a personal change in conviction. You've had something speak to you and quite clearly transform you as a person. You said that you've been reading the Gospels, reading the Old Testament. When you come across these verses that you yourself probably would have once cited as problems with the Christian religion, when you read these difficult passages in the Old Testament that seem to be condoning all kinds of things, slavery and genocide, when you look in the New Testament at Paul's assessment of the position of women, the kind of thing that an atheist looks at and says, this is why Christianity, whether it's true or false, is definitely evil. Outside of the sort of effect of the Christian religion, in other words, the doctrine itself, when you come across these verses, how does...
Hey, we got cool AP. Hey, we got cool chill AP. Okay, AP, so right now, Alex is asking Ayaan, saying, hey, when you were an atheist, if people were to ask you about Christianity, you would have drawn attention to problematic Bible passages, advocating for things that you think are horrible, and you would have said, see, it's bad. And he says, and lots of atheists would, yeah, apart from it being true or false, it's just bad. It's just bad. And he's asking, hey, now that you're a Christian, how do you deal with that? You know, how would the Ayaan Hirsi Ali of 10 years ago have looked at this stuff and said, Christianity is bad, look at these problems in the Bible, whereas now you're saying, I love the Bible. So how do you reconcile that? Let me back up a little bit just so we can get some of his question. But then Cool Chill AP is
condoning all kinds of things, slavery and genocide. When you look in the New Testament at Paul's assessment of the position of women, the kind of thing that an atheist looks at and says, this is why Christianity, whether it's true or false, is definitely evil. Outside of the sort of effect of the Christian religion, in other words, the doctrine itself, when you come across these verses, how does Christian Ayaan deal with that and react to that differently to how atheist Ayaan would have done?
So atheist Ayaan would have come with that fortified, closed mind of what I'm reading is just an old text written by people who are afraid of the world and afraid of the dark, and you know all the other stereotypes. And then new Ayaan, having now really seen the key differences between different religions, is now curious. I come to it with great curiosity, with, yes, so if these things are in the Old Testament, then what? And then what you see is this evolution, not just in the text itself, but also the adherence to the text. You see, and I find quite fascinating, the enormous fights that people had within churches, and what is the interpretation of this verse, of that gospel, of this chapter, or what was Jesus trying to say? And the constant battle with the human condition, the recognition that is trying to understand the human condition, maybe what's called a sin in the Bible is what in modern day life we call impulses and urges and character defects, you know, whatever you want to call them. But the product then is an incredible, really wealthy output of wisdom. And again, even if you don't believe in God, or you refuse to believe in God because you can't see it, it would be such a pity not to partake of this wisdom, not to consider it. I'll give you one example. In the years that I was in therapy, I would see, you know, there was all of these rational conclusions to this is how you respond to a certain situation. I was diagnosed with PTSD. Part of it was because Theo van Gogh was mad and my non-response to my trying to shut off that experience, but also a lot of what went on in my childhood and trying to shut that off. And
Okay, so she said it was a combination of factors connected to her PTSD. It included the murder of Theo van Gogh, but also stuff going back to her childhood. So
the advice you get through the books and the studies based on studies of the human condition, the conclusions they reach and the advice they give now is plainly in the Bible and it's for free. And so there's a great deal of, wow.
What is it that you find in the Bible that you would also find as a result of that kind of therapy?
guys, everyone's understand what she's saying. So she's saying she had PTSD, and she goes to therapy sessions to deal with PTSD, and then she finds out that the Bible offers therapy. And then Alex is asking her, what therapy are you getting from Christianity? What is that? So,
Yeah, it's pretty tight, and it resonates with me. PCTD, what she's talking about, and
you don't have PTSD.
I think it's a pretty cool. It's a good conclusion. It's a pretty good conclusion. I like it. I like what I'm hearing here.
AP got PTSD from his teacher who roughed him up that one time.
That's right. That's right, man. That's right. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
One thing that therapists insist on when you come from a very damaged background in childhood like I did is lack of being loved and the fear of abandonment and rejection. And now reading the message of Jesus, it's this abundant love. God gave you life and he loves you and his life is unconditional. It's an infinite. I think, is it John 12? And when I read that now, part of me thinks again, processing this with a number of other patients or a number of other broken people, I think, you guys, you got this for free. I mean, it's like, it's in your culture. You could have just gone to church. You could have talked to you. You don't need to.
Isn't that interesting? She's talking about all the things that like messed her up throughout life. And one of the things was like not feeling unconditionally loved. There is no such thing for her culturally. And then so she's ultimately, and that doesn't change once she becomes an atheist. It doesn't change once she became an atheist, but as she's wrestling with the consequences of that, she's looking at like what Christians had. And she's like, you had that unconditional love from your religion in your society, and you turn away from that stuff. Interesting. In that, I'm not normally thinking about it like that.
Yeah, there is the aspect of. It's kind of stupid when we talk about such a topic to be goofy. Stop trying to be goofy.
You think?
It is the thing.
Let me hold up my 99 names butt plug.
There is the whole aspect of when you grow up in an Islamic environment with Islamic teachings. What you learn very much is that you're basically a slave and you're an animal. You're a slave. You are disgusting. You're a terrible being. You will most likely go to hell and burn for quite a while, even if you are a Muslim. And you have to ask Allah for forgiveness all the time and do everything He says and not do these tiny little things that He says do not do them. Because if you do them for every single thing, you will probably get punished and tortured. You will, and the Quran is quite.
And you won't like it. You will not like it.
is quite explicit about it. It's like you are going to be tortured. Your skin is going to be torn off, and you will burn, and you will be frozen, and you will be revived again, so that you can suffer over and 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 over again. And you will not like it. So this is basically the Islamic way, and you basically just learn that you are a disgusting, filthy slave, and if you as a slave misbehave, then you will get tortured. If you do something good, then you might get treats, but don't keep your hopes up.
One second. So I just wanted to point it out, like the Quranic basis and the idea for what you're saying. Yeah. So what you were saying there, guys, he's not making this up, and he's not just saying like culturally you were treated as like you're nothing but a slave. That's what the Quran says. It's Surah 19, I think 88 to 91. It's no one comes to. It's talking about people who believe that God has a son, or that we're children of God, or that Jesus is the Son of God. That whole collection of beliefs says no one comes to Allah as anything other than a slave. And when you say anything else, that God is your father, that you're a child of God, or any of that, the universe is ready to fall apart because you're talking like that. So that's how bad thinking like that is, according to Islam. You are to think of yourself as nothing more than a slave. Now, because you're nothing but a slave, you have two options. You can be a good slave or a bad slave. If you're a good slave, you'll be rewarded. If you have a slave and he's a really good slave, you would reward that good slave. If you have a bad slave, then you would punish that bad slave, and so on. But you're still just a slave. It's just up to you whether you're a good slave or a bad slave. But notice, there is no unconditional, tying it back to what Ayaan is saying, there is no unconditional love there. You don't unconditionally love your slave. You love him because he's doing what you say. And this is exactly what the Quran says. Allah has no love until you first love him and Muhammad and obey them. In other words, you show that you are a good, obedient slave, and then Allah can love you because you're doing everything he says. So that's one idea. But the distinction there is, if you have a religion where you are a child of God, you are more than just a mere slave. You are a child. And what's the difference between a producing a child versus having a slave? Well, a slave would have to earn his owner's love. A child, a parent just loves his or her child. And so you'd have a, just which religion you're in would affect your view of your status with God, what you are according to God. If you view yourself as a child of God, and that's what your religion teaches you're a child of God. Oh, okay, well, God loves me. If you view yourself as a slave, well, I have to earn God's love. So big difference. One little side note there. Jesus in Matthew 5 actually condemns that kind of, the Islamic kind of love, when he says, when you love people who first love you, what are you doing? Don't even pagans and tax collectors and sinners do that sort of thing. And so that's when he says, love your enemies, because your Father in heaven loves your enemies as well. And so that becomes just a radically different form of, that becomes a radically different view. But what's interesting there is Muslims claim to respect Jesus, and yet Jesus actually condemns Allah's love. Hey, if you only love people who love you first and do everything you say, and then you love them, what are you doing? What are you doing more than like a normal average, just like human being? So anyway, huge difference there. Anyway, well, I wanted people to understand that. But go ahead, AP.
Anyway, but if when David interrupted me rudely, as always, I was just talking about what you are taught in Islam. And in Islam, you are basically taught that you are to obey Allah, or you will get things poked and shoved into you, and you will be tortured. You will be brutalized in hell, which is a terrible place of suffering, where Allah just wants to get back at you for being such a horrible slave and not being good enough. The Quran explicitly says that Allah created mankind only so that they worship him. and he also created many of them, or if not most of them, to basically burn them in hell, to burn them, to torture them forever. So this is what Islam is. This is what Islam does. It's kind of funny. I'm looking at this tool here, which is totally just a home decor, which has 99 names of Allah on it, and I came across Al-Adl, which means the just. It stands for the most just. So Allah is the most just. It says right here on this home decor,
So you know it's
and
true.
yeah, so that means that Allah is described as the most just, and the most just means that He will put things up people, or rip their skins off, or burn them, or freeze them, set them on fire, torture them forever, and then put it back on again, and torture them again, and again. Even if you are a good Muslim, even if you worship Him, even if you do your prayers, for some things that you did, including, for example, for peeing on yourself and then praying and so on, you will be tortured. So this is what Islam is. It always depends on just being a fully obedient slave to Allah, which is why it is also called Islam. Islam literally means submission. You are nothing. You are only supposed to submit to Allah or be burned forever, or burned temporarily, because that's what Allah likes. He loves it. And going from that culture, learning those things, going from the constant fear to suddenly the Christian way of thinking, and reading the Gospels, or just even reading the Old Testament, just reading the Bible, and being introduced to a completely different understanding of God, makes a great difference. It does make a great difference. I remember many years ago when I first started properly reading one of the books of the Bible from the beginning. It's kind of I had a look at that before because I had doubts and I wanted to compare, but then when I started reading it from the beginning, I thought I was a little bit amazed, and I still am amazed nowadays when I read something in the Bible and it just appears to be completely different from the idea of God that I was taught in Islam. It is a really messed up, hateful, traumatizing, painful idea of God. And it teaches you that your entire existence just consists of being a slave to this messed up being that just wants you to worship him and will punish you if you don't worship him well enough, and will most likely send you to hell forever to torture you just for fun. And that's why he created you. It's a very, very different world. To then be introduced to the Islamic, to then be introduced to the biblical God is a profound experience.
According to AP.
Yeah.
And Ayaan.
That's what they do.
It is, institution to come to this conclusion. Because when I was growing up, my idea of God was not a God who loved you unconditionally and infinitely. It was a God who gave you a little manual of halals and harams. This is what's right and that's what's wrong. And veering away from what's right and doing what's wrong, which is the human condition. Again, your impulses, your urges, is very rebellious. So you would be punished, and many times over on earth and in the hereafter. And that's only strengthened the feelings of self-hatred and self-loathing and shame and terror. So you live in this constant state of terror, and life becomes unbearable. So there's some of those things, and when I tell you I'm going to try and answer some of these questions in more detail in the book, this is just a small foretaste of it. Is you have inherited a culture and a religious tradition that is much more suited to understanding and to empowering and enriching the human condition with all its frailties, with all its brokenness, than the ones that millions and millions of other people are born into. And you can see why, even though on a personal level, yes, I find I'm at peace with it. I'm really, really happy. But then you look up and you look at the world and everything you see around you are all these challenges, and you just want to say, it's really not that difficult. We've made it difficult. And it's not you. It's not. You don't have to choose between faith and reason. You can have both of them. And in fact, I find Christianity a religion of reason, much more about reason than anything else.
I want to.
In your face, AP, because AP was just thinking, no, Christianity is just based on faith, dumb faith, blind faith. Couple of issues along the way. So there, she was asked about the therapeutic aspect of Christianity, because she was talking about. I mean, that's kind of how she was. Kind of how she warmed up to the idea of Christianity was her therapist saying, maybe you're just like spiritually empty, and doing something like going to church would help you. So Alex there asked her about that, and she explained it just in terms of like, hey, there's a huge difference that you don't even understand, because you, Alex, you've even grown up in a culture that has been massively influenced by Christianity. If you didn't have that, and you grow up in this culture where you're nothing but a slave, a good slave or a bad slave, and you're waiting to be punished for being a bad slave and so on, there's nothing that just there's no like unconditional love for you and so on. She's explaining how just that difference has a profound impact on you. But before that, right before that, he was asking her about. So as an atheist, you would have criticized Bible passages for being bad. Now you're a Christian, you say, hey, the Bible is changing my life and so on. So what do you do? What do you do with passages where you go, oh my goodness, how could that be commanded in Scripture and so on? And for me, it's similar to the problem of evil, in the sense that you say, so the argument from evil, there are a ton of different versions of the argument from evil, but in a nutshell, it's look at the kinds and varieties and extents of human and animal suffering in the world. Is this what you would expect from a good, a powerful, omniscient, loving being? Would you expect all of this in the world? And so lots of atheists conclude no. And therefore, that kind of being doesn't exist. But on a deeper level, if you really think about it, like, why are these things bad? Why would it be wrong for a perfect being to allow these things? And you start to realize, I can only view these things as something that a good enough being would not allow, because I believe in some sort of level of objective morality, where there are rules that I believe even an omnipotent being would have to follow. And if whatever created us is not following these rules, then I'm going to reject belief in him. Why is that an issue? Well, when you assume that there are these rules that even God would have to obey, you're assuming a kind of morality and ethics that doesn't make any sense at all on atheism. Like it just doesn't make sense for you to be aware of rules that an omnipotent being would have to obey. Where are you getting these ideas? Are they just from society? Do you believe that these rules are just things that were programmed into you by society or biologically or something? If so, why would you think that they apply to God? Why would you think God has to obey these rules? The fact that you are sitting here breaking down and explaining things that even God would have to obey shows you actually have a kind of confidence in your understanding of ethics and so on that is not available given atheism. In other words, the only reason I can be pointing out these kinds of problems is because on some level I believe in a source of objective morality, but that's God. So how would you even be able, how can you take the conclusion seriously when your ability to reach the conclusion depends on some level of belief in what you're attacking there. So with me, there's a parallel when you're talking about problematic Bible passages. Well, why would I even believe those things are wrong? At the end of the day, I believe I believe that it's wrong to murder people or something like that, or to enslave people, because I'm a Christian. So I believe that people are created in the image of God, and that we're supposed to love everyone, including our enemies. So why would I have a problem with certain things? It's because I believe in God. I believe that we're created in the image of God. I believe that God loves us, and that I'm supposed to love everyone too. And therefore, I can't treat people in certain ways. So what do you do when you go to the Bible and you find people being treated in those ways that you would reject? You say, oh, that's a problem. But why? Why is it a problem? It's a problem because I believe in these other things in the Bible. So in other words, I would be using my views that have been given to me by the Bible to say, oh, the Bible has a problem. Well, okay, if I reject the Bible, then what's the basis for those views? Really, the basis for those views is you live in a culture that has been influenced by the Bible. And so for me, it's just this weird thing of it's been explained in different terms. I think C.S. Lewis talked about it as like you're sitting on a tree branch, but you're sawing off the tree branch and so on. That's what it's like for me. It's like, oh, reject the Bible because this. Well, if I reject the Bible, then there goes my objection, because my objection was ultimately based on the Bible and Christianity and so on, and these ideas in it.
The objection was based?
The objection was based. I just said it. You understand? Oh. You can't even play your bass clip because you're on my channel.
There is a thing. We talk. There are things about the Torah, about the Bible, that I appreciate very much, and this is stuck in my head since the day I first read one of these verses. There are several verses that repeat a certain sentiment in the Bible that is found in Deuteronomy 10:19, Exodus 22:21, and so on, 23:9 in fact as well, which is this idea, and this is something that I never ever learned in Islam, and it might sound basic, but to me this is very deep. Exodus 23:9, for example, says, "Do not oppress the foreigners. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt." Another verse says, "You shall not oppress the foreigner, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Deuteronomy 10:19 says, "And love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Leviticus says, "And the stranger who dwells among you shall be treated as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourselves, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt, and I am the Lord your God." So this is a concept, an idea that is found in multiple verses, just even in something as old as the Torah. And it's just something that when I first encountered it, I felt I felt a little bit emotional about it, to be honest, because it's something that I never really encountered in Islam. It was very foreign to me, that the scripture would command explicitly, repeatedly, there's love for others, and would command you not to mistreat and not to oppress the others, and also on top of that, layers that by giving you the concept of, the principle of empathy, and saying, do not oppress them. In fact, love them, those who are different, because you yourselves were strangers in Egypt. You know how it feels to be oppressed. You know how it feels not to be loved. You know how it feels to be mistreated. So don't do that to others. This is something that I never ever learned in Islam, where it was all about humiliating and dominating and fighting and hating and all that. And it is really significant to come from that way of believing to this way of believing.
And as you're pointing out those verses, it's interesting because it doesn't say the golden rule Like Jesus would explain in the Golden Rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But that's like the principle that's being assumed in those passages is you wouldn't like that. You didn't like being oppressed. So therefore, don't do that to them. You don't like it when people treat you like that. So do not treat other people like that. So same basic idea. Sir Asser here says, if you're supposed to love your neighbor, how can you go and enslave them? Yes. That's the issue. If you actually believe that people have been created in the image of God and so on, and you believe that you're supposed to love everyone, love your neighbor, love even your enemies, how do you go out and then enslave and subjugate them and so on? And so it would be because you have these certain beliefs that you think it's wrong to treat other people in certain ways. And keep in mind, many, many thousands of years worth of people saw no problem with this. Eventually, people who believe that human beings are created in the image of God and have certain rights, and that we're supposed to love everyone, they were like, wait a minute, we're seeing a problem here. We're seeing an inconsistency here. We got a problem. So the idea is, going back to what Alex is saying, how do you then go to the Bible and it talks about slavery and stuff like this, and not see a problem and say that's evil? And so that's kind of issue. And so again, as my perspective, there's nothing in atheism that would tell you it's wrong to enslave. Where are you getting that idea from atheism? No, atheists absorbed that idea from society that had been impacted by the ideas that human beings are created in the image of God. You're supposed to love everyone and so on. So if you're going to now abandon that foundation, how do you even criticize something like slavery? So I look at it as it's actually connected to what I was talking about earlier, how we get the idea in our heads, hey, just get rid of the tyrant and then you'll have freedom and democracy.
Yay!
No, you won't have freedom and democracy. You'll get ISIS if that's the kind of population that you have. You can have freedom and democracy if you have a kind of population that is ready for that. That will be a kind of population that has built up to that. So notice what happens when we just say, hey, let's go and impose freedom and democracy on some other country. What happens? Ends in disaster. Why? You don't have a population that's ready for that. And you have the modern atheists, and they're looking at something 1400 BC and saying, well, why didn't God just establish a modern liberal democracy back then? I don't know, because it would have been eaten alive instantly back then. And so God to me, it's just like God takes human beings who are created in the image of God. He takes them where they're at. Okay, here's your cultural context. Here's where you are. And he puts certain ideas in there that are eventually going to lead them to something better. And then it does. And then the people who are on the receiving end of that, who like the fruit, then they attack it and say, shame. Why wasn't it just perfect and wonderful from the beginning? It's the same idea with like the United States is evil. Why? Because it had slavery. Yeah, and it ended it. In other words, they inherited that. It was already there when the United States is formed. They didn't decide, hey, let's invent this thing called slavery. It's already there. And it didn't last a century in the United States. Once the United States formed, slavery didn't last a century. They progressed out of it. And yet you'll condemn them for not being perfect from the beginning. Well, how in the name of common sense are you going to just expect people to be perfect from the beginning? And if they were not perfect from the beginning, then you reject them forever, and they're nothing but evil. It's a weird idea. And I think a pretty modern idea, which is destructive and not helpful.
Alhamdulillah.
Much like AP.
I'll ask you about the cultural impact of the Christian worldview, but I do also want to really press this idea that those problems that you identified in the Christian religion will still exist. Richard Dawkins, for example, thinks that the most evil idea of the New Testament is the idea that everyone is born in sin, the idea that there needs to be a human sacrifice in order to atone us when God presumably could have just forgiven us anyway. And he sees this as grotesque. And this isn't the Crusades or the Inquisition. This isn't something that the Christian church has done. This is something that's baked into the Christian religion. And I don't know if you would have said 10 years ago that you also thought that was an evil idea, but that idea is still there, still just as obvious and important as it was 10 years ago. When someone like Richard says, this is evil, this is a bad thing to be teaching children, that they're born in sin.
But even notice, Richard Dawkins says this is evil. Wait, the guy who says there is at bottom only blind, pitiless indifference. There is no real right or wrong or anything like that. That's evil. This is the ongoing And it's just interesting that you have Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She'll convert. She can be a brand new convert, and it will be, Ayaan, here's this list of things that you now need to explain about the Bible and stuff that you just started believing in. Whereas Dawkins, he's been an atheist for like 1,000 years, and he still can't answer basic questions about how do you justify your claims about right and wrong given your world. There's no justification. He always dodges it and just says, I prefer living in a society, and that's it. Which is a trillion miles away from what he would need to actually justify those claims. But here you have Dawkins would say that these teachings are evil. It's interesting that he went for like the idea that we're born as sinners, like original sin. Islam attacks us on that, and I forget who said it, but he pointed out that like people who have a problem with the idea of original sin. It's like, that is the most empirically verifiable claim of all religion, that human beings are sinners. Like, you're born that way. It's not just, oh, this guy, he's born and he's perfect and he never does anything wrong. And this other guy, well, he's born and he decided over time to commit some wrong. It's like, what are you talking about? We all do really messed up stuff. A baby like learns to lie for attention very early on. Anyway, it's just interesting that you can look around at the world and 100% of people sin. We're just like, but hey, this idea that we're born and we have a tendency to sin, it's so evil. And you don't want to say it's false because it's kind of obvious, right? That it's true. It's just bad to say. Kind of fun, yeah. It's bad to say it. Anyway.
And that they cannot be good without the help of a God who threatens them with eternal punishment if they refuse to love him or even just fail to believe in him. What do you make of those critics?
Now, that would be a caricature, because he was saying, hey, the idea that we're born in sin, that is in Christianity. Yes, that's true. But it's saying you can't believe you can't be good without God threatening you with punishment and so on. That, I would say, is not the argument. It's like, even for me as a former atheist, the difference for me was, if there is no God, then all this talk of right and wrong, what are these rules? Well, there's something that either is wired into us or that we made up as time went on. Or it may even be beneficial in certain ways and so on, but there is no real moral obligation to do right or wrong and so on. Whereas once God enters the picture, okay, then these rules become real. They're real. And so the idea is not, hey, you can only be good if God is threatening to punish you. It's, what in the name of common sense does being good mean if it's all just your personal preferences and what you like and dislike? There can be real objective good and bad given a certain framework, which isn't available on atheism.
Now.
What are you playing, weirdo?
So I'd say some of the complex layers of that I would leave to people who are much more, I'd say, more immersed theologians who can make the point for them. But again, I go back to this human condition thing, and we have free will. I know that I'm capable of good. I know that I'm capable of evil and bad stuff. And here is a God, at least in the Christian God, as I see it, who says, you are, free to do as you wish. Here are the laws. Here's what it means to be a good person, and you choose what you want to do about that. And if I make terrible choices, I'm forgiven over and over and over again. And I think that recognition that good and evil are in us and that we have the free will to choose, that's a much more powerful message than if you had human beings who are then, because again, that begs Richard's question, Richard's opposition, then begs the question, are we robots then? I mean, we're now in this era of AI. We could have been designed as just doing the right thing, and then not being moral beings. And I mean, I think we don't want 7 billion robots. What?
So, in response to the objection, she did a bit of a free will theodicy. So God creates us with free will. But it is, and guys, this is actually a good tendency. She said, hey, as far as like the difficult questions about sin and atonement and so on, I would leave that. She's a pretty recent convert. She's saying, do not ask me to explain that right now. That I would leave that for theologians, which is correct. It's something I say a lot. Why are you asking me this question? There are better people to ask about certain topics, of course.
Would even the point be?
Yeah, well, people are made very uncomfortable with the idea that we don't have agency, that we're not in control in this way. But that was the big criticism that Christopher Hitchens made in the other direction. He said that God is a celestial dictator. God is somebody who is constantly surveilling you and watching you while you sleep and convicting you of thought crime and punishing you for even disobedience in your own.
We want to get rid of the dictator, Saddam, Assad, Gaddafi. But who is the ultimate dictator? God. So let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of him and there will be no one to control us.
Mind. Presumably that's not the relationship you feel that you have with God.
He read more of the Quran than the New Testament.
I did wonder, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, if you could sit down with Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
And guys, there's a lot more to this discussion here. We're not even halfway through it. So we'll finish with this point. And he's going to ask her here. I'm saying this because this is as far as I watched. He's asking, hey, if you could, what would you say to kind of Christopher Hitchens and so on? But we'll see what she says here. But I wanted to point out let me just look. I'm looking at the timestamps on the original video. The other topics that she's going to address after this that Alex is going to ask her about, are atheists or Christians more open-minded? Can you choose to believe in God? What strikes Ayaan from the Gospels? Why Ayaan took a stance in the U.S. election? Can a Christian support Donald Trump? Immigration and Christianity, and what would Christian Ayaan say to atheist Ayaan? So those are all the topics that come up later in the interview. There is a link in the description box if you want to check out the rest of it, but we'll watch this bit and then go through our super chats.
Today.
What'd you just do, man?
Did you hear that?
Yes. Why are you playing it on my show? Are you sitting there messing around figuring out how to play sound effects on my show?
That is funny, man. Huh, interesting.
Yes, all of that sounds awful and horrible. And whatever program you're using to do that, destroy it and also destroy your computer for sucking.
We'll go back in time and speak to him.
You could go back in time and talk to Christopher Hitchens.
What would you say to him? What do you think he was missing?
I think we would tour the universities together in America, and we would look at what's happening to young people today. And we would look at the effect of saying what it is that they're seeking and they're opening themselves up to. And here I referenced Bertrand Russell when he wrote the essay, Why I'm Not a Christian, where he then really goes on to say, if Christianity were to disappear,
if we get rid of it, everything would be better.
Yeah,
that was the granddaddy.
Reason would overtake, and we'd be
science and reason.
Would have so much progress and so much humanity and so much reason. And then now we actually have the empirical reality where Christianity is waning, and what we are getting in the highest temples of learning, the temples of reason.
Interesting. We'll definitely want to let her keep going here, but good point. We've made it multiple times in the past, but I normally point out that the new atheism was set up as kind of a hypothesis. If we just get rid of Christianity, the world's going to become more scientific and more rational and so on. Tried it for a couple decades, total disaster. Everyone starts going completely insane, and you get Islam just walking all over everyone. She actually goes earlier to Bertrand Russell, and Bertrand Russell was saying this a long, long time ago. Bertrand Russell was saying, hey, if we just get Christianity out of the way, everything's going to become more rational. Didn't happen in Russell's lifetime. It's the new atheists who finally got to try it. And she's saying, well, we tried it. And if you look at it empirically, in other words, hey, look around at the world, what actually happened, it did not become more rational. It did not become more scientific.
Reason. It's unreason. And I wanted to have a conversation with Christopher Hitchens. And when I brought this up with Richard Dawkins, he did acknowledge it, and he finds it frustrating. And I understand why he's frustrated.
He's frustrated.
But I think we have to
people
go
aren't
back to
becoming more
this
rational when they
idea
become
of
atheists.
as human beings, we're much, much more complex than just the material. The atheist assertion, we're insignificant, we are nothing. I forget what Richard used to say about, we are so, he said, I forget the exact quote, but it amounts to...
Blind, pitiless indifference.
Yes, we're no more... What was it? We have no more significance than some kind of organism.
Right.
She might be going, what was the one? Human beings are machines for propagating DNA. That would be, I think, be the most perfect one. So Cosmic went with the quotation from Dawkins, where at bottom is just blind, pitiless indifference and so on. And then Ayaan were basically organisms. And then I think the most relevant quote there to make the point is, what are we? You are a machine for propagating DNA. That is your purpose. In other words, the purpose of you as a human being is you are basically created by nature to be a machine for replicating that molecule, DNA. That's your job. That's your purpose. And she's saying, what?
It is a metaphysical matter.
Yeah, you have to be more than that. AP, I want you to take a shotgun and shoot that program in the face. Right in the face. That's so funny.
And that's just not true.
That's what you do.
And anyway, I also want to point out in this reading journey that I have taken on, that there are more and more people, the more we discover about the universe and the more we discover about the world, there are more and more scientists, especially on the hard science part, who are saying there is something rather than nothing. And I think that's sort of the conversation I would have with Christopher Hitchens. The problem of the activism, the evangelizing of atheism, I think that creates a barrier that robs one of curiosity. If you just shed that and you come, and you shake that off and you think, I'm open to change my mind, then, you could change your mind. You could see things that you wouldn't see when you say, I don't want to see it at all. In other words, the
quit grinning, AP.
The accusation they level against people of faith is also true for them. They really do believe in being atheists, in not believing in God. And so that is why the whole conversation about within the Christian West ended with let's agree to disagree, until the world came into the West, until Islam came and other forces came in, and that is why it's reopened.
Hey, did you catch what she just said? It's interesting that she's not watching. I mean, as far as I know, she's not watching our stuff. She's saying very similar things that I was just talking about, but I talked about it in terms of ecology, that we reached a kind of equilibrium in the West, and it's okay, we will make our case, but at the end of the day, we'll agree to disagree. And she said that works until something else comes along that is not going to have any respect for that sort of agreement.
That's exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. See,
Hey, why do you sound quieter now?
everybody gets that from me.
You are quieter now. What did you do? You
What?
screwed up your system.
Am I quiet right now?
No, you're okay now. But right when you were talking right into it.
Right now?
No, now you're quiet. What did you do to it? You're messing around with your system, and then you screw up your entire system, and you ruin entire shows.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, powerful. All right, let's let her finish up
Well,
here.
the idea is that everybody worships something. Everybody has their dogmas. Everybody has things that they believe essentially without evidence. And the atheist message was always, we're people who analyze these questions. We're people who plug in those gaps in our knowledge. And if we can't justify something,
Turn that crap off, man.
we're not going to believe it. And with that, they levy this closed-minded accusation against the religious. And I guess there's one thing to say that they do it as well. Do you think that they do it more so?
If you read the works of the apologetics, it's really this whole exercise in trying to grapple with that, where they say we're not believing in something just because we believe in it, and we're sticking to this really very serious attempts at trying to understand, to explain, and there's a great deal of doubt and self-doubt. So I think it is really on the other side where there is this certainty that there is nothing, and then trying to get everyone to come to the belief that there is nothing. And so, and I'm not saying this is true for every atheist.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a caricature to say that Christians they all just believe without evidence and without thinking. It's like, oh, have you read the apologetics? Have you read the gallons of ink spilled over debating and trying to justify positions? Now, of course, atheists will say that, well, we do that too, and we do it better. But you're someone who's been on both sides of that. And I think when a lot of people, when atheists say, oh, Christians, they just believe it because their parents told them to, they're thinking of like their uncle at Thanksgiving. Yeah, they're not thinking of the William Lane Craigs or the Alexander Pruses of the world. They're thinking of someone that they know personally. But similarly, I know more atheists who are just atheists because, I've never seen any evidence, whatever, haven't given it much thought, than I know atheists who've sort of reasoned their way into that conclusion. I think it happens on both sides, in other words, but you're someone who's now lived both of those sides and interacted with both of those sides. And you said a second ago that you feel like it comes, more closed-mindedness comes from the atheist side than the Christian side.
More closed-mindedness comes from the atheist side. And what's that?
Whoa! Just going to end with that. More closed-mindedness comes from the atheist side. Boom in your face. That's a woman who has been on all sides of this issue: Islam, atheism, Christianity, and the most close-minded people on the planet is every single atheist. What's up?
Do I sound okay now?
You still sound quieter to me.
How about now?
Yeah, now you sound normal.
How about now?
How about now? We should change it to now.
How about now?
That's funny. All right, we'll take these last super chats here. I found the video about Turkey now and subbed to AP. Thanks. So that was,
Thank you.
That was the follow up to where did AP draw the maps of the world according to his own sick views. I don't watch sports. I say nothing during sports conversations. I don't jump in and start trashing your team. That's what lack of belief looks like. Yeah, we had one of my wife's relatives over for Thanksgiving yesterday. We had the football games on. They always play football games on Thanksgiving. And he steps in and he goes, "What is this? Is this the semifinals?" He thought we were in the semifinals of NFL football. And so anyway, it was pretty easy to establish that he had no clue what he was talking about. And so probably wouldn't have been a good time for him to start attacking other people's team when he was asking whether it's the semifinals.
Makes sense.
Could you make a club of those persecuted by Sharia and have panels? People forget how law and international law affect life and travel for the persecuted. Well, you're looking at AP right now. This guy has multiple arrest warrants out for him.
They call me Arrest Warren G.
That's why they call him Arrest Warren G. I don't know about a club. I mean, there are groups. There are groups of like ex-Muslims and so on. So, but persecution of people would go way beyond ex-Muslims. There are lots of Christians who've been persecuted, Hindus, Jews, atheists, everyone. We're all in the same boat there. But yeah, so that would be a big club, Sketch Therapy, really big club.
Yeah.
Dawa Wrecker's analogy is ecosystem. I guess that's D Wood. Dawa Wrecker's analogy is ecosystem. Mine is gut microbiome. Loam, you mean biome? Even overlaps the word culture. Different bacterial cultures, some help, some hurt. That's true.
How about no?
Saw David Wood in What Do You Meme channel thumbnailed my interview with a Christian psychopath. I thought, what? This son of a biscuit is talking trash about David? Then I found out David was actually had psychopathy. How dare he talk trash about David? Oh, it's true.
Alhamdulillah.
We can only defend and fight those that attempt to subjugate us. Thank you for being you and AP being AP. Yes, AP believes in everyone being subjugated if they don't agree with him. And I believe stopping people who want to subjugate us.
I would choose the yeah.
We got Ali Postate G before Grand Theft Auto 6. Why is that funny?
Yeah.
Ermagerd, it's Apostate Piker with his Turkish B-plug.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That was true. I would like to see her and John Lennox chat. That would, hey, yeah, I was thinking about that, but that would be good. And that would be a very, someone should recommend that to her. So Mark, I would message some people about that discussion. I think it would be very, very interesting. AP is trying to be a 90s atheist. Well done. with his cool hat. I witnessed the miracle of the Quran's poetic beauty when AP was paraphrasing the verses about people being tortured in hell. I witnessed the miracle of the Quran's poetic beauty when AP was paraphrasing the verses about people being tortured in hell and having their skins burned off, and then Allah replaces their skins with new skins. By the way, just so you know, Grays, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Muslims do use that passage in the Quran as one of their scientific miracles. So,
oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's happened many times. So the argument is, hey, Allah says He's going to burn off your skin, and then He's going to replace it with new skin so that He can burn that off. And they say, how could the author of the Quran have known that your pain receptors are in your skin?
That's so stupid, man.
So this is a scientific miracle. People didn't understand.
How could they know
pain
this?
receptors. They didn't understand pain receptors back then.
How could they know this?
Yeah.
How could they know this?
How could they know that if you get hurt on your skin? And even if you wanted to go into the burning and so on, and how would someone know that if your skin gets burnt off, you might not be able to feel pain anymore? I don't know. To say that's a scientific miracle, you'd have to know that no one was actually a burn victim back then. So no one could have conveyed, hey, now that my skin got burned off, I don't even feel anything right here. Now that sounds quiet, and you sound normal. You got to fix your system, man. You should probably start by getting a completely new system before fixing this one, which sucks. Allah works on Stockholm Syndrome. You used to be in He Am I Not
Hell.
Most? Oh. You used to be in He brackets. Used to be in He 2 left brackets. Am I not merciful? I got you out. Be grateful, pleb. Yeah.
No, it's brackets. It is good now.
Yep. AP is wrong about Islam. You can drink alcohol, eat bacon, and do all kinky things in hijab's source history as long as you fight for the cause of Allah. Now, the creepy part is you are actually correct in that you can get a guarantee for paradise if you die while fighting unbelievers in the name of Allah. And that's why very frequently in the past, when there would be some terrorist attack and people would say, but this guy was 2 days earlier before his attack, he was in a strip club and drinking. This proves that he's not sincere. No, that's a guy who says, 2 days from now, I'm about to die slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah. And therefore, I get a free pass on anything I'm doing now. So I can go around and mess around in the clubs and drink everything I want because I'm getting a free pass. It's a guaranteed one-way trip to paradise.
And you know what's funny? I just realized that I ratioed Myron gains.
Did
as
you?
They call it. by he posted a picture and said new
Of a
profile
Jew.
pic,
Yeah.
and himself looking like that Jew meme. And I just posted Prophet Muhammad when he married little Aisha,
Yeah.
and I have 10,000 likes and he has 6,500 likes. So
That's
this means
funny
that
because
I'm-
he has a huge presence on Twitter,
Yeah.
and yet just got ratioed and humiliated by
this means I
the
destroyed
prophet.
him.
Tides are turning, ladies and gentlemen. So, based on what AP says, you disobey Allah, you get poked. If you obey Allah, you get to poke.
Yes.
It's a good summary of Islam. That's not
That's
just what
pretty
AP
smart.
says. That's pretty much
pretty smart.
Islam. Mhm. Omar says no to jihadists. What? That's
It is
pretty
totally
racist.
gay.
How's my two favorite criminals doing? Toot toot AP. Oh yeah, we're both criminals now.
Oh yeah, we are.
That is interesting.
I'm a gangster.
And yet he's allowed to own a gun and I'm not. TikTok, time to flop. There will be no flopping here. Our stuff is too powerful. Dawa News. AP silences himself in a live incident involving an ancient broken down computer and a dose of mess around find out. You see, that will be the new Dawa story.
I do need to find a face tattoo for freedom of speech or something, for thought crimes. Maybe I could put a brain on my face here.
We'll come up with something better, and then you get... No, have the teardrops, but they're little brains. If you look closely, it's actually little brains dripping down your face.
Oh yeah,
that would be good.
I'm gonna get face tattoos.
That would be good. That would be good. Islamophobia-filled show. Yes, that is sad. Fact is that Islam is the religion of peace. True. One piece of you goes over here, another piece of you goes, hey, this changed directions really quickly. I thought we were going to be on the same page, and then you instantly turned into something extremely racist. Eli, hey, Eli, love you both.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you.
For those who missed yesterday's show, for those of you who missed yesterday's show, I mentioned that Eli... that my brother got out of prison and got a job instantly. Surprisingly, I thought it would take a long time because he has some serious charges from back in the day. In other words, once you know him, you're like, oh, yeah, this is a good guy. If you just look at him on paper, he's done some messed up stuff when he was on drugs in the past. Anyway, brother needed a car to get to work, and I contacted Eli because he sells cars, and Eli gave my brother a car. So that was actually super cool, super cool. My point here is not just to tell you that Eli is cool. It's if you're in Florida and you need a car, go check out Eli. He's someone who's not going to rip you off.
Hey, Black Angel has a good idea.
What?
Black Angel had a good idea. It said, tattoo your version of Turkey and Armenia on your face, AP.
There you go. And if you don't, then how much do you really care? Just saying thank you with some debt-based fiat currency. God bless. Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Let's see. Got a couple more here. Look at this. Look at the name of the picture, AP. Do you see it? It's you. It's you.
Rapper.
That's connected to what you were saying. You pulled up the lyrics of the Eminem song.
Yeah.
You're like, he didn't just say it leaving out a P, did he?
He didn't just spell the word rapper and leave out a P, did he?
Did he? Yeah, that's funny. Funny stuff. Anyway, Islam is fiction, but here's a fact. It's full of nothing but crap. If Islam is being awake, I'm taking a nap. Yeah, bars. There you go. Islam is fiction, but here's a fact. It's full of nothing but crap. If Islam is being awake, I'm taking a nap. Yeah, bars. There we go.
Yeah. Tight.
I was unaware of the scientific miracle. This is excellent news. Yes, there is the scientific miracle of Allah saying he's going to burn off your skin and then replace it with other skins. How could Allah know about pain receptors in skin? It's impossible unless you touch someone's skin and pinch them or something. It's the only way to know. No one could have known this in 7th century Arabia. Hey, AP, we're going to close out now. What's going on tomorrow? You want to talk about tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to talk about something, most likely.
Okay, so you heard it here, folks. Tomorrow we're going to talk about something.
Yeah, there was one incident with Mossab Hassan Youssef that where apparently he talked about Hamas to the Oxford Union peeps, and they started booing at him.
How long was that?
A terrorist organization.
I
don't know. I didn't check it out yet. So I have to check it out.
I retweeted what he said. He said he asked the crowd if you were aware before October 7th, if you had been aware that the attacks were going to occur, would you have warned the authorities so that they could stop it? 75% said no, they would not stop it. And this is the same crowd that voted that Israel is an apartheid state, where 75% of the pro-Palestine crowd said they would not have warned the authorities if they knew these guys are going over there to kill and rape and slaughter. They wouldn't stop it. So if you could have stopped, and this was the point that was interesting to me. They know now what the consequences of that attack were. And so it's, hey, if you could have stopped this attack and thereby stopped the retaliation after the attack, would you have stopped it? No. What does that mean? It means they believe it's worth it. It means they believe that killing 1,200 Israelis is worth whatever happens, no matter what destruction comes as a result of retaliation. Okay, then what are you guys complaining about? You think it's worth it? Why are you complaining about what happens in Gaza when you're saying it was all worth it? Weird stuff.
Apparently, what happened is that they kicked out Yosef Haddad, who was there, who is an Israeli Arab, and who is very much pro-Israel. They kicked him out in the middle of the debate or something, and they started booing at Mossab Hassan Youssef for suggesting that Hamas is a violent and dangerous terrorist organization.
Wait, Yosef Haddad, is that the guy that we know from Israel Advocacy, or is that a different Yosef?
No, that's a different guy.
That's a different
guy. That's a Jew. This guy is an Arab.
Okay. Oh wait, okay,
so,
yeah, I know who this guy is.
Yeah. I don't know. Messed up things happen.
Yeah, you might need to go ahead and watch that whole thing and pick out the most important parts, and then we can review those.
And there's even news which says Oxford Union voted by an overwhelming majority that Israel is an apartheid state responsible for genocide.
Yes, the same majority who says if we knew about the attack, we would not inform the authorities because we want all these Jews to be killed. Those guys said Israel's an apartheid state. Shocker.
278 to 59. So a bunch of students came together and said, we think Israel is an apartheid state responsible for genocide. So no reasonable entity has actually concluded that there is a genocide happening.
No reasonable entity, and a stupid entity has.
And no actual entity that has that actually has a say in any of this kind of stuff has established that there is a genocide. But these students came together and voted on it. Therefore,
they decided. Yes, and now this is paraded. This is the proof. Look, a bunch of brain dead morons said it. You see, this is the
and they also said that if they knew that the terrorist organization was planning a terrorist attack which mostly killed civilians, they would not report it. Which means, dear Western people, these very same people here who proposed and voted that Israel is an apartheid state that commits genocide are people who would knowingly and willingly allow you all to be killed in a terrorist attack that mostly targeted civilians. This is what we're dealing with. This is how messed up and sick the West has become. It makes me sick when I think about it. I don't want to think about it.
And I'm sure that Israel right now is shaking in its boots saying, oh, the Oxford Union, said that we're an apartheid state. What are we going to do now?
What are we gonna do now?
Here's an idea. Let's give Israel to Hamas. That will be better. The Oxford Union thinks that. So let's do it. Fun times ahead. All right, guys. So sounds like we'll be taking a look at that tomorrow. You might want to actually pull up Candace's video about her nomination for Anti-Semite of the Year. Powerful response.
If I look at both of those things in one stream, I might end up vomiting.
No,
on camera.
Just bring some Pepto-Bismol, and then we can cover everything. One last super chat here from Emily. She says, David Wood, when are you going to do a live stream with your bro? He's already agreed to do it. He has been working a lot, and he gets back and is tired. But yes, we're going to do it sometime. We are going to do it. We've agreed to it. We just have not set up a time, letting him basically get settled in to his job and so on. But yes, we'll do it, and we'll talk. We'll probably swap prison stories and stuff like that.
There's one thing I want to clarify. Oxford Union is actually unaffiliated with Oxford University. So some people might think that this is
like Oxford University deciding Oxford University has declared that Israel's an apartheid state.
It's not even Oxford students necessarily. It's just it's a club that was established by Oxford students, but it's like anyone goes there nowadays. So it's not necessarily a society of students or teachers or scholars or whatever it is.
And it is just, it's kind of sad and pathetic. It's like with the ceasefire with Hezbollah. You and I both agreed that the ceasefire with Hezbollah makes sense. They crossed some lines, but they literally got their balls blown off and so on. It's like, okay, you guys want a ceasefire now? If so, we can work with that. Whereas with Hamas, kind of makes sense to keep going after Hamas until they've been completely destroyed. And yet you say, yes, a ceasefire. This is a victory. We have won. We have defeated the Jews. Like, you guys are setting the bar pretty low. Like any sort of, if they do not exterminate you, you've won. That's like, that's your thinking right now. But it's similar on other things. Like you can like Gaza can get destroyed down to rubble, but like the Oxford Union can say something and be like, you see, we're winning. Like you guys are like hilarious, endearingly pathetic. It's like, it's almost like you guys are so cute thinking you won something. Oh boy, it's pretty funny.
It's ridiculous. I think that Israel should continue going on, and I think there should be a solution reached where a significant part of the population in Gaza is offered an opportunity to relocate to a different place, so that all of it can be annexed and become part of Israel, so that this conflict can end.
You heard it here. I'll just say, Islam. I cannot think of an example of Islam winning at anything in any way this entire year. It has been defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat, loss after loss, L after L after L. Militarily, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas getting crushed. Every debate, the Muslim side has been crushed. Not looking good. Not looking good. And so it kind of makes sense that you're like, oh, but the Oxford Union, who loves the October 7th attack and said they wouldn't even warn people about it if they knew it was going to happen. They said that Israel's an apartheid state. Alhamdulillah, we won. It kind of makes sense. You guys will cling to anything. It's kind of pathetic. But again, endearingly pathetic. You guys are funny. All right, guys. See you back, Lord willing, on AP's channel tomorrow to discuss some super dope stuff. Maybe we'll see some Oxford Union stuff. Maybe we'll see some fun stuff with Candace on her nomination. Will she accept her award as Anti-Semite of the Year if she wins? We don't know yet. We'll find out. Catch y'all later.
God willing. See you.